Hello everybody, I'm here today to talk about compendiums. Not just Marvel compendiums, not just DC compendiums, but compendiums across the whole industry. Why are they so popular, and what compendiums could make the most money for comic publishers in 2027? Do not adjust your screens. You're having a crisis. It is I, Crisis with a K, coming to you live from New Zealand. It's cold, it's winter, but we're here to talk about comic books, and that's going to have to be enough to keep us warm. So today, the theme of the show, as I just mentioned, is compendiums. Now, if you haven't laid your hot little hands on a compendium, I feel like I'm surrounded up by them on all sides at this point because I just keep buying them. They are as long as an omnibus, and they are in some ways offering some improvements on omnibuses, not the least of which the fact that they are a bit cheaper. I've got one here from Dark Horse, a Ghost Compendium, Volume 2 of 2, collecting pretty much all of Ghost in 2 affordable paperbacks. I've got a Starman Compendium here, collecting half of this historic series that I was bullied into buying because my viewers could not believe I'd never seen it or read it. Here's that Volume 1. One of my favorite series of all time. We've got Planetary Hearing Compendium in 1 complete edition with a very colorful spine. But you know what you're not seeing any of in this list? And I haven't shown an image one yet. Let's do an image compendium. Here is Spawn Compendium Volume 4. They're all the way up to Volume 7. Do you know what you're not seeing? Marvel compendiums, because Marvel hasn't done any yet. So we're going to talk about what's so successful about these compendiums. We're going to talk about what compendiums DC could do, although honestly, they're doing a great job without any advice from me. We're going to talk about 15 indie properties, or maybe is it 10? Who knows? I think it's 15 that I really think could do well in compendium, and they're not necessarily the things you maybe would have thought of, or maybe they are. And then finally, we are going to get to 15 books that I think Marvel should launch their compendium line with. So after all that talking, let's say hello to some viewers, and then we're going to get to the crux of it. Superjop was the first one to say hello, but also came right in with a question: what's a minimum size for a compendium for me? I think they should probably start around 700 pages, because that's, and we're going to get into this, where the price per page really starts to make sense and make them attractive more so than other collections. Nicola is here with so many wants: Runaways, Hellboy, Giant Days, Judge Dredd, and Astro City. Will we see any of them on the list? Joanna Pauls is here, who wants Miss Marvel by G. Willow Wilson, Avengers by Hickman, Marvel Swimsuit Pinup Gallery. It would be hilarious to get a swimsuit compendium. Edwin Billiot is here, who says this sounds like another fun topic. Logan Wayne is here and saying what an awesome and fun idea. And you know, knowing me, the choices may be slightly unconventional. Kiwi Comics, we love things misspelled with a K here, saying Captain America by Brubaker, FF by Byrne, IDW Transformers, FF by Hickman. Gosh, you guys had some great choices and possible spoilers. Level 87 Code saying, woo, Tiger Eyes, the man, the myth, the legend is here himself. He is in the middle of reading Tom King's Batman, but based on his read so far, I don't think he wants it in compendium in addition to omnibus. He's saying maybe some Wildcats 3.0, Sandman Mystery Theater. He didn't even know that was a compendium already. Somebody buy it for them. And Checkmate, perhaps. Shunter Navarro is here, who will be at work, so probably not chatting with us actively. Kubo69, don't know if they will be able to catch live, but you know what? We'll catch it on replay. We like it just much, and that's why we still say hello. Luis Felipe Alves said, I'd give an arm for Queen and Country compendiums. Spoilers for a future haul. You might see some Queen and Country here in the house. Super Panda can't wait to see what's on the list. Stephen Patterson is looking for Punisher, Circle of Blood. Jamie C. 4799 is here looking forward to this. Dr. Zero is loving the 90s goodness and wants more. Impulse, Stormwatch, Superboy, Steel, Legion, Parrot with Lobo, all sorts of stuff. And Phantom Maximus wondering if I want a Wildstorm compendium similar to the Milestone compendium. I don't even know I didn't pick those. Oh, no, because they moved. They used to be right there. Now they're right here. Yeah, I have all of the Milestone compendiums. The shelves are a war zone right now. Max Appelman is here. He has had quite a day of traveling all about, and I suspect could be asleep before I'm actually into any of the compendium content here. Patrick Borgold, I'll just say hello to a few more people. Wiccan is here. Maul is here. Ellen and Cedric, always happy to see, who's of course stumping hard for the indie compendiums, we'll get into this. I didn't do Lady Death because that Kickstarter is about to happen. John 678 hoping to see more ongoing title compendiums. Speed Demon Cursed with overtime again, so won't be commenting much, but lovely to see you in the comments. Xbox by Degrees, David M, Wiz, Ted, Jimmy M. What is going on there? Hold on. His secret identity was almost exposed. That was actually Wheels who was commenting there. Sazmirth, Momentarazi, Trace Williams. My dream has been Marvel releasing a full map of Claremont and Simonson, X-Men, New Mutants, X-Factor, all in one. That sounds cool. Monkhouse, Anime, and so many others, but folks, including Howdy from South Queens, from Puddin' Tame, and it is time to begin. Richard B. 42, Badger Stump, Andrea Stone. I started late, so I really want to try to say hello to everybody. Comics Dude with a ranking idea. Oh, you know what I didn't do? See, this is why sometimes it's good to just spend a moment and catch our breaths and analyze. I didn't put a link to the after show in the description. So I'm going to go and do that now. If you do not know, the after show is where if you've got ideas for future shows, if you've got questions about comic book opinions I have that don't have anything to do with this thing that we're doing right now, if you just want to know why my lips look so gigantic today, all of those things happen in the after show because we like to keep this one nice and focused. So the after show link is now in the details of this video. No need to reload it right now. You can reload it at any time. After shows are available as an archive for Pledge Not members and up. And if you're on the Discord, you've already got the link, and that's for Crushing Comics members. Okay, let's actually talk about the reason that we're here to talk, shall we? And that is 40 compendiums that should be printed by the end of 2027 if comic book publishers like money. I want to say hello to 91 Pulp. I know as soon as I buy one compendium, the floodgates will open. I'll want them all. That's what happened to me. I got one because it was Wildstorm. I think my first one may have been the Wildcats one, because I was so excited, and probably Milestone, because I knew that was like the only way that I'd get it. And then it was like, well, I guess I'm getting them all now. So, but I also think DC Finest certainly helped open those floodgates as well. Bears Lair, everybody's expecting me to say a lot of Wildstorm because they've seen this channel before. Okay, so here's my compendium of compendium rules. Why does the comic book market suddenly love and obsess so much over compendiums? It's not possible to answer this perfectly, but I think there's a couple of market factors that are leading to it. So one is that the market's moving in the direction of more affordable books. This idea that these comic shelves, like the ones behind me, are only for super rich people who could buy lots of luxury goods, which omnibuses are a luxury good, no different than a handbag. They're a luxury good. That idea is waning. I think we have seen a lot of influx of newer comic book readers. It's not just because of movies. It's because of the influx from young adult comic books, like Scholastic books. It's from the influence from manga. And so there's a lot of readers, and they're like, what do you mean I have to spend $800 to buy all of Claremont X-Men? And I see this happening on Reddit all the time where they're like, so what can I do to get Claremont X-Men? And people are like, set your eBay alerts. And they're like, F that noise. And that's a common response. So the idea that these compendiums are out, they're available, they're obvious, and they're affordable is huge. And I think that that links to the second one, which is that these people coming from manga, coming from like kids, you know, like Kid Crisis, who's like reading graphic novels of, you know, Percy Jackson and things at their school, what's his name, Dogman, all that stuff. They expect a shelf that you can just pick up the next book. It's not that they don't care about or respect floppies, but they just have this mindset that like when the floppies are done, you will give me a book and I will be able to read them in order. And the compendiums tend to fulfill that wish more than a bunch of individual trades or do, although omnibuses certainly do as well. I find that some people kind of are a little confused by the idea of epic collections and DC Finest because until they get through a whole line, that kind of obviousness of them all lining up isn't there, right? So the other thing is that these readers, they want to experience complete stories, which I know as an old person, I'm like, you just pick up the issue, you pick up off the newsstand. That's not the experience anymore. And we have to respect that. Like every generation has their own reading experience. If we went back in time to the 1960s, picked up a couple of copies of Amazing Fantasy 15 to put into our bags, and then like handed somebody this run of like 50 Immortal Hulk issues to be like, this is all you need to love the Hulk, they'd be like, 50 issues? Because that just wasn't the reading experience then. So we have to respect that the reading experience, and this is not just about youngins. There are people coming into the reading experience who are age 30, 40, 50, who, because of the zeitgeist of what the reading experience is right now, is like, why would I wait 5 years across 5 books that are going to be like $50 each to read this series. I just watched the Invincible TV show. I want to read it now, right, D. Marcel? We want to read it now. So, that's a thing. And then finally, compendiums are often, and especially DC is doing this, but Skybound too, they're being positioned as definitive, which is crazy to me because I think we went through the last 10 years of like omnibuses are definitive. Omnibuses are the last word, but omnibuses, we're finding out there's exceptions made, there's things skipped, there's compromises. And since the compendiums are so big, so thick, and they're not seen as this premium luxury good, it feels like there's a way to take more chances. And I think Monkhouse points out something really interesting here is that compendiums are not new. This idea of Bone, the complete cartoon epic in one volume, which was 20 years ago, that was what a compendium, more or less. Dark Horse's omnibuses, which I actually remembered to put one just off camera here, which is the one that I always show, because it's one of the few that I have, of the, this was the, they called it Dark Horse Heroes, but it was, what was it, the Greatest World? There was something it was called. But anyway, these were smaller than full trim size, but many publishers did these books, these kinds of books, and they weren't like as big as a compendium, but they were paperback omnibuses. They were certainly being influenced by the way that manga was collected, and these things existed as far back as the 90s. So this is again like a very common format, a very common thing that happened. Another one that I've got behind here somewhere is that where is it? Here we go. A lot of publishers like Dynamite did this just as a trade paperback to me, but they called it an omnibus, a Vampirella the Dynamite Years omnibus, and that to them was like a recollection. But the problem with some of these is that they're relatively short, and I think the difference between some of these and what we have today is that the ones that we're getting today are like 800, 900, some of them are even 1600 pages. And so not only they're long and satisfying to read, but the value of it has gotten huge because the price is not that high and you're getting a lot of content. So I think those publishers that used to do those like 200 and 300 page books that they called an omnibus before, like a paperback omnibus, I just don't think that cuts it in the market right now. Comics Greatest World, thank you very much. Satyr and Sage would love a Love and Rockets compendium, being enjoying the Locust hardcover, but I'd like something like the box set without paying 400 United States dollars, and that's exactly it. It's not that we don't value the amazing creative work of these creators, but we're like, there must be a way to get it cheaper than $400. Luis Felipe Ellis has all grundled out like that. That actually may have been my first kind of omnibus slash compendium purchase. Questions like this one, like what are my favorite formats to read in? Those are after show questions. So if you have not already and you're watching this live, reload and get the after show link below, and then we could talk about that in the after show. So what makes a good compendium? I boiled it down to what I thought were 3 rules of compendiums, okay? So the first rule is affordable. Right now, the market cares about affordability. Maybe that's a recession indicator. Who knows? So to answer a question, I think Wheels just asked in the chat, I went through a whole range of compendiums right now. Compendiums recently are averaging anywhere from 4 cents a page to 10 cents a page in US dollars. But if we compare that to omnibuses, omnibuses start at the kind of top end of that. Trades are kind of at the top end of that. So even the smaller compendiums are coming in price per page equivalent to the best priced omnibuses and trades. And that tends to always be true if the compendiums can break the 700 page mark, which many of them do. So the next rule that I think makes a good compendium, they're desirable. Now, what does that mean? Because like any book that you put out that you want people to buy should be desirable, right? But compendiums and paperback omnibus formats, they used to just be the cheapest way. All those things I just showed you, the whole reason all of those things exist is because they were a cheap way to print a lot of material. But now and they weren't always the most popular material. Was that Dark Horse World's Greatest Comics thing the most popular? I don't even know where I put it. Was that the most popular material? Certainly not. Certainly not. It was just something that people had curiosity about, and it was like a chance to put it all into one book, right? The same for that Vampirella material. Was that Vampirella material from Dynamite from the 2014 era burning up the charts? Not necessarily, but it was a convenient way to recollect material and recirculate it. However, now compendiums are like some of the hottest content in comics are being put into compendium. The old common wisdom was like, you would never give that away in a compendium. What are you, crazy? Why would you waste a compendium, a paperback on that when you could be getting omnibus dollars? But look at DC. They put Night of the Owls in compendium. Now, to be fair, that has been through every possible format, trade paperback, box set, hardcover, omnibus. But like the common wisdom was like, you would never put these best of the best all-time evergreen runs into a cheap compendium format. Why not reap the money? But that polarity is reversing. We have Green Lantern by Geoff Johns in Compendium. We have the original runs of Transformers and G.I. Joe in Compendium. We have the complete publishing history of Spawn in Compendium. We have New 52 Wonder Woman in Compendium. Big hits, beloved books, premium content, desirable content is hitting Compendium right now. It is not just a way to shovel out a big run that you cannot think of any other way to market. And for me, the third rule of a good Compendium right now is improvements. Now, not every compendium improves some previous collection, but it used to be, again, that compendiums, these paperback omnibuses, they were an afterthought. But in this year, 2026, we are seeing compendiums being mapped with a lot of intent, sometimes with more intent than other collected editions. They're a chance to put like a final word on something. They're a chance to cram in a few extra issues that would not have fit into other things. They're really starting to feel definitive. And I do think the Image compendiums kind of led the way on that, because Image doesn't really do omnibuses other than Rat Queens and Invincible. And so compendiums really became like, this is the final format I'm going to put this out in for some creators. And that was their chance to be like, well, I better get it all in exactly the arrangement that I want it to be in. So, I think for all of those reasons, that's what makes a good compendium. So as I've been going through this list and building this list, that is how I did it. And we know that even when something is kind of one of my opinion shows, I spend some time wrangling the data. So I wanted to find a way to wrangle those three elements into data. The affordability, the desirability, and the improvement. So what I did for desirability was popularity. I just looked at sales charts. I looked at how many people talk about books. I looked at ratings on League of Geeks. For improvement, I looked at the idea of collected uniquely. Like, is there a way for this compendium to include more things than previous books, to put things in a better order than previous books? Is there any kind of way that it could do a better job than what came out previously? And then because it's really hard to rank, what's that other thing that I said I was going to rank? I totally, the thought left my head. Oh, affordability, because they're all affordable. So it was like, like if it has enough pages, it should be affordable. I had a third rank, which is format recency. So there are some things that many of you named, and I'll spoil run right now, Avengers by Hickman. That's not in here, because Avengers by Hickman just had an omnibus reprint announced. We know that sometimes compendiums do overlap with the release of other formats. DC has certainly done it. But I just think that if we're talking about how to make comic book publishers the most money, I think they want to release compendiums that don't super or overlap other formats. Bear's Lair saying, I think compendiums would be great to make format evergreen, both affordable and scratches the itch. And I completely agree, because they are a lower price to print than these like deluxe hardcover omnibuses. And they're a lower price point to sell to people who are maybe new to the hobby, or who are just like, I've always wanted to read XYZ run. I do think that we're going into a world where compendiums are maybe the evergreen format, which is crazy, but that drove so many of my choices, Bear's Lair, so you are right on point. And Super Ram saying, I love a Claremont compendium so much. I mean, this is what I mean. I try to stay active on, not so much on Facebook groups anymore, but certainly on Reddit, on various Discords. The things that people are coming in asking every single day. I want to start X-Men. I want to start Spider-Man. I want to read post-crisis Batman. What are the Superman triangle years? And you know what? When they ask those questions about Invincible, where do I start Invincible? There are answers, because Invincible has been in every format. When they come and ask that question about Walking Dead, there are answers, because Skybound, Robert Kirkman, has figured this out, and he made it easy to start in every format. And plus, those are two series that sequentially start from one, while Invincible has some side stuff, but they pretty much just go and go. But like, compendiums are easy to answer that question, and DC has been paying very close attention to that. Where do you want to start Green Lantern now that the Green Lantern show is out? Oh, we have two perfectly mapped, full of every possible Green Lantern story from 2004 forward, Green Lantern compendiums for you. Do you think that was a mistake? No, because DC knows what they're doing right now. So on that tip, let's begin looking at DC Comics, and let's actually start with looking at their compendium lines. So currently, no DC compendium is collecting the same period of a title as a DC Finest. They have not overlapped. There are instances where Superman Triangle compendiums are at the end of Triangle and Superman DC Finest are at the early part of Triangle, but we're not seeing anything covering the same part. Now, and also some compendiums are done. They were either like one and done, like that Planetary compendium I was holding up earlier. This is Planetary. You could say maybe this is like part of an overall effort to compendium some Wildstorm, but there's no other Planetary to do. That is Planetary. So I want to look at what's alive currently in line, because I do not want to suggest things in lines that are live, which I made an exception. Batman New 52, we just got a second one announced. That's a live line. Batman Beyond, there have been 2 compendiums. Green Lantern, the Kyle Rayner era, we have 1 kind of slim compendium. There's certainly room for many more. Green Lantern, the Jeff Johns era, we have 2. They just announced a 3rd. Justice League Dark and New 52 got a whole book, so probably we'll get a Rebirth book at some point. JSA from pre-Flashpoint, we've got 2 books. Lobo, we just got a 2nd book announced. Nightwing, we got a 4th book announced. Preacher has had a compendium. Robin, who's both starting from the beginning of Tim Drake and also filled in the end of him as Red Robin. Superman's Triangle era, working backwards. Teen Titans, pre-Flashpoint. So all those are live lines. I don't feel the need to suggest anything. Spoilers, they're not going to be on my list. Status unclear, Animal Man. We got a Grant Morrison Animal Man. Does that mean we're going to get the other 2 things to match the other 2 omnibuses? Hard to say because it's so definitively just Grant Morrison. Fables, we got the main 150 issue series, but we didn't get all the side series. So are they done? I don't know. Milestone, they did get through all of original Milestone, but there is Redux Milestone from like 2018 or 2024, the Dakota incident. Will they put that in? I don't know. Stormwatch, we just got that 1 singular Road to Authority. Does that mean they're going to collect the Stormwatch before that as well? Are they going to collect later Stormwatch? Unclear. And Wildcats, that just gets reprinted again and again because it's got Jim Lee's name on it. Does that mean anything for a line of Wildcats, which we would need at least 4 more compendiums to finish? Hard to say. So, and Wiccan, like Jack of Fables, right? Are we still going to get Jack of Fables? Unclear. So I tried to stay away from these things. So based on that, let's talk about 10 DC compendiums. And look, DC is very good at this job. I don't think they actually need my help, but this is me just spitballing. The other publishers, they need me more. But DC, babe, you're doing fine. Okay, number 10, DC Comics Bombshells. What is this? This is a digital first series that started in 2015 that was a World War II Elseworldsy book where all of the major DC heroines were these awesome, heroic pinup girls that were still superheroines. Had a ton of women on the creative team. It was a lot of babes, but it was a lot of feminism, and it's a really, really cool book. Even though it was digital first, it has already been reformatted into print issues, so there's no big lift there. They did 2 deluxe hardcovers of it, but they tailed off. They did trades of all of it, but those trades have been gone for a while now. So let's put it through the measures. Affordable. Yes, it pulls together several out-of-print trades that would be hard to get now, and the deluxe hardcover line stalled. Desirable. DC has not done a lot of standalone Elseworlds in Compendium. I think that's partially because they were hitting Omnibus with the big Elseworlds, the Batman, the Superman, the Justice League, but this is like a standalone Elseworld that fits more into the newer Elseworlds format of like DC versus Vampires and Dark Knights of Steel, and I think that this is one that has a lot of fans that are at the lower price point fandom because they just are fans of characters like Harley from other mediums, and so they don't necessarily want a giant omnibus. I think a compendium at $60, then discounted a little bit, would be very palatable to them. And then finally, does it improve? In a way, because the deluxe collections ended without getting all the way through. You know that Jess Bragg would buy this Omnidog. And again, I tried to pick things that were like obvious winners. I think if you had this and you printed this and this was in print, this is just the kind of thing that would just move a few copies all of the time. I don't think it would go to waste. It's never going to be in the top 60 of the Omnibus poll, but it is absolutely perfect for a compendium. So Quick Comics, I always want to say Quick Comics, even though I know you're a Kiwi. Kiwi Comics, I think when I'm saying Triangle Era for Compendium, I don't think I have the Superman one handy right now, but some of the books that they've done in Compendium for Superman are from later in Triangle. They never said we're doing Triangle Compendiums, but the Lex Luthor one they just announced and the City of Tomorrow, those are still Triangle years, unless I'm gravely mistaken. And also we have Death and Return of Superman as well, but I'm not really thinking about that. I think that was always just going to be a compendium on its own. So I guess I could have more accurately said they're doing end of Triangle Compendium. It seems to be the same play that DC is making on Batman, where they're collecting backwards in DC Finest into the Bronze Age and then forwards in Omnibus at different points in the Bronze Age. It seems like this triangle's so big, DC is collecting backwards in compendiums and not calling them triangle compendiums, and then forward in Omnibus. Okay, here we go. Is Bombshell's writing quality good enough to put out again for DC? I'm not here to be an arbiter of writing quality for a lot of these books. I really just tried to look at books that felt very marketable and that people would want all in one at this price point. Let's look at number 9, Steel. Now, I will say, this is not my normal list. You're going to see a lot of things on here that you know that I do not have personal interest in. This one, I've got skin in the game. So Steele is DC's widely known African-American Superman. He is from The Death and Return of Superman, so we already have a compendium that goes directly before this. And this entire 52-issue series was split between Louise Simonson and Christopher Priest, two huge names. DC is hyper-focused on 90s Superman right now in every format. We've got Triangle Omnibuses. We've gone a little bit into the Triangle years or just before the Triangle years in DC Finest. We just talked about how the compendiums are collecting later in Triangle. Steele in an all one-and-done omnibus is absolutely perfect for this. And also, I mean, not to be cynical that, about this, but DC did just sell 5 compendiums worth of Milestone heroes, which crossed over, I think, at one point with Steele and Worlds Collide, and that Steele was like another African-American hero of the 1990s that is possibly not as widely known as every DC hero, but certainly more widely known, I think, than Milestone, because he had a movie. So I think if they have a comparable sales amount for the Milestone books, Steele would be a really easy next one to pick. And the Fingler saying Steele needs to be collected ASAP. I so agree. So why print it? Affordable. I think he'll move the best in a single volume. I think to do this in DC Finest, we're looking at 3 volumes. That's risky. I think in an omnibus, that's really a higher price point. This is the way to do it. If it sells like hotcakes, then they basically have blanket permission to hit either or both of those other formats. Desirable. Most of this has never been reprinted. So anytime that DC offers like a compendium and you're like, whoa, we've never had that before, which some of the Nightwing compendiums are doing, that is immediately attractive to people. And improved. It's certainly improvement over nothing. This is one of those chance to just knock it out all in one, which is why I think it's better than DC Finest, and I just think that Steele is a more appealing sell at a lower price point, at an affordable price point, in a compendium, because I think more people will sample it. Logan wants it so bad. J. Michael White, you've only missed one other one, which is DC Bombshells. Okay, and this is just 10. I mean, I made a huge list. I think I forgot to say at the top, but the people on the Crushing Comics Club Patreon tier actually helped me brainstorm. Do I still have my list up? My list was 172 long, and we're only talking about 42 here. All right, number 8, Sandman Universe. I'm always on my bullshit a little bit, but hear me out. Let's break ground on getting all of the Sandman universe into compendium. Could this just recollect the same Neil Gaiman stuff that they've always collected and they've been through in every format? Absolutely. And why not? DC loves selling Sandman, and every time there's a new format, DC is there with Sandman. They did it with omnibuses a little while ago. Why not do it in compendiums? They did 3 omnibuses. They were kind of huge. Maybe they do it in like 4 compendiums, because DC also loves to always split up Sandman differently so that like you can never line them up across different formats. That's like one of their favorite pastimes. But Sandman Universe encompasses a lot of things. Could we do some Lucifer? I'm just reaching down as I'm going to get it. It's not in this room. Could we do a pair of Lucifer compendiums? We certainly could. Could we do compendiums of The Dreaming, which has never been collected before? We certainly could. Could we do a compendium of the material that comes after the Neil Gaiman Sandman, which has never been collected before? We certainly could. So this offers a lot of options. I'm not saying they have to start in any one place, but even if you have personal opinions about Neil Gaiman at this point, Sandman will always be a seller for DC, and compendiums don't often get marketed under a creator name. In fact, I can't think of any DC compendium that even Tom Strong, I don't think, was like Alan Moore's Tom Strong. So it's a great way to sell Sandman without Neil Gaiman's name on it. So affordable. Yes, and DC is not precious about making Sandman always cost a lot. They are in every format for Sandman. So it's not a barrier to make Sandman more affordable. They're fine with that. Is it desirable? Going more broad on the branding of this to get away from the Neil Gaiman of it all, I think makes it desirable for both DC and for fans. And also improved. There's so much uncollected material that you could integrate into this line. So yeah, there are a lot of ways that could improve it. Wonder Woman is creator named. Great point, Jeremiah Olsen. I don't have the spine of that, so I wasn't thinking about it, but yes, the Wonder Woman New 52 compendium is creator named. And this is why, and so is Titans by Geoff Johns. Thank you, Grace and Flo. So this is why I like doing this live. Although people think I'm infallible, I am nowhere near that. And I'm just a database running on other databases. And with having hundreds of collaborators live to mention this stuff and challenge me on some of my rules, I think that is really helpful. J. Michael White would love to see some compendiums of the newer Sandman universe stuff. I would like that too. I think those books were absolutely brilliant. Martian Manhunter would definitely pick up Sandman in this format. I would buy Sandman again if they put everything in them. There you go. I mean, some people just want the material because a lot of other great collaborators there. Okay. Here's a pick that is not a personal favorite of mine at all. On the Tiger Eyes poll, we called this the Justice League Adventures in the DC Universe. That's because it's mashing up two different things that would probably be two different books. One is this comic, Adventures in the DC Universe, which, as you can see from the cover, is very much Justice League. And then there's also Justice League Adventures. DC has been in both Omnibus and Compendium at this point with these 90s cartoons books. We got Batman in Omnibus, because, I mean, animated series, one of the biggest hits of all time. We got Superman in Compendium. Pretty cool. So clearly there is an appetite out there for these comic books that do adaptations of the 90s. 90s nostalgia is cool and huge right now, not just for people who lived through the 90s like moi, but also people who just want to check out stuff from the 90s. And these character designs, as you can see, certainly align really closely with things that you might know from other parts of the animated series. So let's take it through the rubrics. Is it affordable? Yes, it matches the price for content ratio of the Superman Adventures books. Is it desirable? Yes, because compacts would be too short to get a big chunk of this, and this is not a line that is being heavily considered for DC Finest. DC talked about that there could be a line of animated DC Finest that collects all different animated stuff, but we don't have that yet, so there's no way to collect this right now. And improved, yes, because these have never been collected comprehensively. They were just small digest trades that kind of skipped around. The Dis fan would buy this. Monkhouse said this would be fun. This fan grew up watching this and thinks it's a cool idea. Edwin Billiot thinks it would be great in Compendium, great books for kids. And that's the thing, I don't want to make it sound like this format is just for kids or like just for like the poors because it's affordable, but it makes it easy to get those people into the hobby and to hand it to them. You are not, I mean, I handed an omnibus to a 6-year-old because that's just what this house is like, but you're usually not buying and handing an omnibus to a 6-year-old. I'm Thomas Judge. Hello, my good friend and long time CK supporter who has some very, very cool and comprehensive visual reading orders on his channel. If you've never checked it out before, we're kind of talking now about how to make that more a reality for more people to see. Feels like Spawn Compendiums have slowed down recently, but that's because they got to Spawn Volume 7. I think they're already, does that mean they're up to 350? Like, we're only a few months behind current Spawn. So now the next Spawn Compendium that they announced, I think is for King Spawn, which is like one of the new Spawn books. So Spawn Compendiums actually went so fast that they caught up to present day, and that's why it's slightly so. Hello to President Kane, who would absolutely buy this book. Okay, let us continue. Number 6, Gotham Academy. Now, this is not just because I am on my personal bullshit. Gotham Academy, to me, is a slam dunk for Compendiums. It ticks all of the boxes. It is modern. It's about young characters. It is in continuity. It is a perfect sized run to be in a big book like this. And honestly, I just don't think it would do as well in Omnibus as it would do in Compendium. So would it be affordable? Yes, this would be a lower price point than the trade collections that they've already been through. Is it desirable? Yes, because it's an all-in-one book and it's an all-in-one Academy book set in the real DC continuity. Like that's I don't know if you spend any time in the library near the graphic novel shelves where all the kids are clustered every Sunday afternoon. At least that's what it's like in our local library. This one, there would be slap fights over this. Like, this is a book that will gain readers, and it's not just for young readers because it's a really good comic book. And improved, well, the trades collected just fine, but they did just finally wrap up the Year 1 series, and there's the Gotham Academy and Lumberjanes crossover, which hasn't been reprinted, I don't think, since it really came out, but since DC just collaborated with Dark Horse to put Ghost Batgirl in multiple different formats for Batgirl, maybe DC could talk to Boom, and we could actually get the Lumberjane stuff included in this. I just think, whether or not you're a fan of this material, I just think that this is such an easy pick. So obvious. Richard B42 saying Gotham Academy rules. Grayson Flows saying I would read this in Compendium. And Maul is endorsing my personal BS. And Yarn Pulse is like, why haven't they done a Year 2 thick trade for Gotham Academy? Screw thick trades. Let's just get a Compendium. And then Chris Brogan thinking alike before I even said it out loud, saying, what if they could add the Lumberjanes crossover? At number 5, I didn't say there would be none of my bullshit. Okay, but here, be quiet, just be quiet. Okay, hear me out. I know that I said that it's a mystery if the Wildcats line might continue. After that existing Wildcats book, which is never far from me, but apparently pretty far from me right now because I can't lay my hot little hands on it, the next thing is Alan Moore. Now, DC has been making a concerted effort, have you noticed, to put out Alan Moore that has not been Alan Moored before. We just got an Alan Moore Superman Absolute. I think it's starting to be in people's hands. I don't follow Absolutes too closely. The two Tom Strong compendiums, quickly followed by Tom Strong and Omnibus. Alan Moore's name still sells things in 2026 going into 2027. And beyond that, now that we've picked the bones clean of all of Alan Moore's 1980 stuff, 1990s are in, baby. And Alan Moore writes what would effectively be the next 10 to 15 issues that you could compendiumize, is that the verb, of Wildcats. And this has some absolutely stunning art in it from people like Travis Charest, Ed Benes, Ryan Benjamin, just absolutely amazing stuff. Now, would you just have to stop at the end? And some of this has been collected. There have been like Alan Moore image trades in the past. It's been a while. And now we have a format that could deal with the chunkiness of this without omitting anything, right? Now, would it just stop at the end of Moore? There's so many side series of Wildcats that you could cram in there. It really depends on how DC maps. If they wanted to put a bunch of non-Moore stuff in there, they could need 2 compendiums. This could go all the way to issue 50. It's not a mapping show. But would it be affordable? Yes, it absolutely would. And DC has shown, again, they are not precious about Alan Moore stuff always having to be at a high price point because they just did the Tom Strong stuff in Compendium. And Tom Strong is hugely, hugely desired by a niche of fans. Niche. So like the fact that they started out in Compendium and that rather than some premium format shows that they're willing. Is it desirable? Wildcats is not a big name, but Moore is always a big name. And there are 90s freaks like me who do want it. And as it improved, anything would be an improvement. But if DC wanted to pick up the Red Phone to Crisis, I could help to make them make this so improved that it would spin your head around on your neck like a barn owl, because this really could capture everything. They didn't really do such a bad job on that first one. There's so many series in the first Wildcats compendium that like right on the line where you could have squeezed them into that one or put them into a next one. So I really think that there is a way that it could work. Goody saying, give us Supreme, baby. Why have a thicker trade if you can have a thicker trade, says Silver Palm. And Goody is like, this is not me on my BS. This is a day one buy. But Jamie's like, it would not be a crisis list without Wildcats. Look, this went through the same scoring rubric of everything else. And Alan Moore and looking at what DC has prioritized lately is what made me think to put this here. I really debated with myself and like, was I just on my BS by putting it here? But I really think the Alan Moore of it all and looking at those Tom Strong compendiums, I think for me, that's what makes it seem possible. Okay, number 4, because we have other publishers to get through. Robin Damian Wayne. This came from the Crushing Crisis Patreon, although I was already kind of thinking about it. But then when I saw somebody suggest, and I want to credit them, so I'm going to look it up live right here. When I saw somebody else, it was Wasabi, who's one of my newest supporters. Shout out to Wasabi, who named this one. And I was like, yes, absolutely. I thought it was just my imagination. Here's the thing. Nightwing, former Robin, does he have a compendium? Yes. Tim Drake, Robin, does he have a compendium? Yes. Jason Todd, none for you. Damian Wayne, should he get a compendium? Here's what's so interesting about this. Damian Wayne kind of spans a bunch of different series. He's popular now. He's in webtoons now. Younger readers, younger fans of all ages are aware of him now. But if you wanted to read the complete Damon Wayne as Robian experience, Damon Wayne as Robian experience, there's no easy way to do that because you have to buy first the Grant Morrison omnibuses and then the Batman and Robin omnibus and then a bunch of stuff. I think this is like in deluxe. It's not obvious. Compendiums are about making it obvious. That's what the audience wants today in 2026. So the great thing about this is that they could keep calling all of them like the Robin Damian Wayne compendium. But one of it would just be the Tomasi and Gleason run. One of it would just be, could just be Super Sons. Why don't we have Super Sons in Compendium? Slam dunk. I didn't put it on the list independently because to me, it's like actually kind of part of this line of compendiums. Then we could have all of Williamson writing Robin. There's just so many ways that you could do this. And you could put all of Damian Wayne packaged together. You don't need a lot of other Batman stuff in there. Just do the Damian stuff. He's beloved. He's another Robin in Compendium. Robin is definitely one of the major compendium movers for DC. It makes sense. So affordable, yes. Lower price point than the omnibuses. And it would just get stuff out so much faster without doing omnibus reprints. Desirable, yes, because I do think there's name recognition for Damian now. He's been around for 20 years. I know it's hard to believe. And improved, yeah, because right now, even with a Crushing Crisis guide, it is not obvious what order to read his story in. I think doing it in compendiums could make it super, super obvious, and it would just be really fun to read. If this included Super Sons, Louis would be totally in on it. Thomas Judge is all in on this compendium. Grace and Flows would buy these, even though I have most of it. Yeah, Super Sons is in 2 complete collections. I think obviously Super Sons would like get its own branding. It wouldn't be like Robin Super Sons because it has John Kent in it too. But I just think like in the same way that we got the Tim Drake Robin compendiums, and then they also did the Red Robin compendium, with all of us knowing that's the end of the Tim Drake run, I think you could put out Super Sons in the scope of putting this out. I think this is an easy sale. I think so many people love this character, and it's just not obvious. And compendiums make things obvious. Yes. Okay. Next. Gen 13. This is not me on my BS. There is logic and reason behind this one. Hear me out. Gen 13 hit the top 60 of the Tiger Eyes poll this year. But the only Wildstorm that DC has ever put into Omnibus, look at what it is. Authority, Planetary, you have to have a big name creator on the book for DC to want to put Wildstorm in Omnibus. Gen 13 is huge. It goes on and on. It has a lengthy original series. It has a lengthy comeback written by Gail Simone. It has side series. It has one-shots. It has Gen 13 bootleg. You've seen me map it all in the Tiger Eyes poll. Trying to do this as a Deep Sea Finest, it would take forever. Even trying to do it in an omnibus, we're looking at 4, 5, maybe 6 omnibuses. DC doesn't go that big right now. That is a lot of book to spend on an untested property. You know what's an easy way to test this property? You do a $60 compendium that has 1,000 pages, and you just see what happens. And you don't have to restore the artwork to oversize. The artwork's already standard size, perfect for compendium. I think that this is a slam dunk. And it's not just me being a freak. It's me looking at the top of the Tiger Eyes and being like, what's not going to work in DC Finest and what is not going to work in Omnibus? So affordable, this would be a similar price point to other Wildstorm compendiums, although I think they could probably go bigger on this one because there's really no like stop point. The way there is, the Stormwatch had to stop at the beginning of Authority. Wildcats stopped at the end of Lee and Robinson. This one, you could just fill it up as much as you want to fill it up. Desirable, yes, there's consistent high demand for Gen 13, higher than there is for Stormwatch, quite frankly. And improved, we've never had this comprehensively past the original miniseries, so just it existing would be an improvement. So so far 20% Wildstorm books for DC. Well, I mean, but I think they actually work in Compendium, and let's not lose sight of the fact that in the Compendium line, we have Tom Strong, Planetary, Wildcats, and Stormwatch. DC has pretty much sent up a flag up the pole to let us know that Compendiums are actually where Wildstorm is at. I didn't even realize that until I was doing that like lines thing. I was like, look at all this Wildstorm. I hadn't fully occurred to me until I was doing that. Okay. Now we got to get back to where we were. Number 2, Birds of Prey. Many of you have seen it, said it already in the chat. Here's the thing. We have seen DC basically say Chuck Dixon is our compendium guide. Or guy. He's our guy. He's our guy. I have the guides. He's the guy. Nightwing, compendiums. Robin, compendiums. Who knows if it's because they don't think Dixon will sell an omnibus, or maybe it's because they don't want to restore the oversized art. We got the Gail Simone half of that in omnibus. Let's start at the start and start compendiumizing. It's perfect. It's a perfect companion to all this other mid-late 90s stuff that they're compendiumizing from the Bat family. It seems like all of the roads lead there. And this means that we could just collect right through the stuff that's between Dixon and Simone, and then we could just continue into Simone if those omnibuses sold well. So like, to me, this is Babs is always popular. Birds of Prey is always popular. They're doing a Kelly Thompson omnibus of Birds of Prey. We now have 2 Gail Simone Birds of Prey omnibuses and the Kelly Thompson omnibus. Like, I think Birds of Prey is a seller, y'all. I think it's happening. I think it's real. So this would be better price point than the last incomplete run of paperbacks. It would be highly desirable because all of the Dixon stuff is doing pretty well in Compendium. He was the DC 90 guy in the Bat family. And could this improve? Yes, because issues 22 through 55 are like very inconsistently collected previously. This is a slam dunk. Like this is not just the Crisis show where Crisis is asking for things that Crisis wants. This is me being like, DC, I'm so happy you deigned to speak to me this year. I want you to keep making fans happy, and I want you to keep making money. And I am telling you, this will make money. Grace and Blows, yes. John, yay on this. Jamie C, this feels like the obvious next choice. Monkhouse, this would be amazing. Louis Philippe, this is it Louis? I'm so bad at knowing how to pronouncing things correctly when I think I need to give them some kind of like, like Spanish pronunciation. I'm terrible. I never want to offend anybody by saying their name incorrectly. I would say Louis if I was an American, but it's clearly not Louis. This is such a no-brainer. I have no clue what number 1 will be or why it's not out yet. Webster New World for 2026, compendiumizing. Would this add the Terry Moore? Yeah, Chris Brogan. I think that's the attractiveness of it. The compendiums are kind of like, we'll just keep collecting. We just saw the Nightwing compendiums. They're going to roll right out of Chuck Dixon into Devin Grayson. So yeah, this is a great way to deal with just collecting everything. Also, there's a couple one-shots in the middle that are like Catwoman something one-shots that are part of Birds of Prey that you could collect here because you don't have to deal with that whole, well, what author is it by? Like, it's just not a thing to worry about. And it's Portuguese. Okay. Well, I'm even worse at speaking Portuguese, although I have more friends that speak Portuguese than fluent Spanish, which is interesting, perhaps. Okay. What is my number 1 DC, why won't you do it, compendium? What do you think? More Wildstorm? My number 1 DC compendium is Hellblazer, John Constantine. Why? The omnibuses are doing very well, but the omnibuses are creator-based, which makes sense because Hellblazer has always had long creator runs. But we're seeing that causes some challenges because they want to skip around and pull in issues out of order. We saw that same thing happening in the newly announced Animal Man omnibus, where they're not putting the Jerry Prosser stuff from the end of Animal Man. Compendiums, as we've established, do not have those problems. Also, this did incredibly well on the DC Finest Bowl. Now, it had 26 Hellblazer paperbacks that already existed. They were only 250 to 350 pages. So we are definitely looking at a world where we could have that entirely in DC Finest in the 12 to 14 DC Finest range. But even if they do 2 a year, that is 7 years to get it all out in DC Finest. Is there a better way? Yes, there is a better way. It's called compendiums. The compendiums could just release at a 2 or 3 year lag to the omnibuses. We've seen other compendiums mirror omnibus content. That is not off limits to us. But instead of following the mapping of the omnibuses, the compendiums could just collect everything perfectly in publishing order. And they wouldn't have to just do it as a lag. They could do the thing that DC has shown that they're willing to do in multiple different lines at this point, which is actually start with the last one, fill in from the back to the front. DC has so many cool strategies in collection right now. This is always in demand. Hellblazer never goes out of style. And this is not a personal favorite of mine. I like the character. This is not one of my favorite runs. If this was Omar or Lars, you could be like, oh, you just chose that because it's you. No, this is me. After hearing everything that I've heard on the Tiger Eyes poll, on the DC Finest poll, I know that this would make money. And I know that DC is not against putting Vertigo stuff into Compendium. We saw them do Animal Man. We saw them do Sandman Mystery Theater. I just think this is a no-brainer. I do not think it will compete with the omnibuses if it is scheduled appropriately, either kind of at a lag from them or filling in from the back. I think this is easy money, and I think there are so many people that would buy it at $60 that maybe are not going to plunk down the $125 or more for an omnibus. I think this is the compendium line that most needs to happen at DC Comics. Let's see what everybody else. Grayson says I would want this as well. John saying woo. Cider and Sage saying it would smash in Compendium. James wants it. E.G. Tolentinoy says it's an instant buy. Michael J wants it in reading order. Hell yeah for Andreas X. Stone. Jay Passan had to say goodnight. I know he'll be watching the rest. Edwin saying I would buy it since I'm not buying the Omnis. He was my number 1 vote for the DC Finest line. Yeah, I mean, and the comments just keep coming. Day 1 instant buying. Yeah, compendiums from the front, Finest from the back. This should be an annual autumn release. So yeah, a lot of support for this. And look, I have no influence at DC. They're actually very good at their jobs. They don't need my help. This is just me putting my finger in the air and feeling which way the wind is blowing. And I could be wrong. You could have 10 totally other books. They have plenty of open lines to continue. But I think if we saw these 10 books, I think on the whole, I'm not wrong. I pay pretty close attention to these things. I don't have real sales data, and DC really pays attention to that stuff, but I don't think I'm 100% wrong. But you know what? That was just DC, baby. We got more. Now, I thought about going publisher by publisher here, but I decided to just kind of put all of Image and Creator Owned and everybody together and just let them fight it out. So we're going to look at the top 15 compendiums that I suggest. Now, the Crushing Crisis Patreons had so many suggestions for this. And this is where I really had to turn to my scoring system. If something was currently coming out in trade, if it was seemingly like competing with other books, I just was like, now is not the time. And that meant that some books that I really like, that for me would be a high priority to get in Compendium, did not quite make the list. I will spoil to you that Lazarus did not make the list. Even though Lazarus did well in the scoring, I just really tried to focus on things that are like a total WTF, why we don't have them. I think Lazarus would actually be a terrific point. And I want a special shout out to Wiccan, who had so many suggestions. I think like a third of my sheet of research came from Wiccan. Razor, we can talk about my own choices of what I collect and why I collect it and what kind of particular insanity I have in the after show. The link is at the bottom. Marvel can use my help, and that's why we're going to go ham on Marvel as soon as we get through these indie books. Yeah, Lazarus also not finished yet, although I didn't say that not being finished was an exclusion necessarily. Okay, let's go. How did I choose indie compendiums? Look at that. See, I'm just like Omar. I started talking about the thing that was on the next slide. I looked at the complete history of comics from Image, Boom, Dark Horse, Dynamite, IDW, and several other publishers. For each publisher, I used League of Comic Geeks to look for the longest series. I also looked specifically for series that were in the 20 to 60 issue range. I also quizzed the Cushion Comics Club. There's that. Thank you. I think it was in this earlier. And for eligible series, I checked on the dates of the most recent reprints, if they even existed, and how comprehensive those reprints were, because why suggest a book for something that has already been perfectly collected? I discarded currently running series. Oh, there we go. See, I didn't even know my own rules. And I also discarded series that have a currently ongoing recollection line. And I also considered marketability. This is not just about what I want. There was plenty of good examples like Zot by Scott McCloud, not on here. Do I want it? Do other people on this channel want it? Yes. Is that one of the 15 books that would do the absolute best in Compendium? Probably not. I could do a whole other show with like another 30 indie compendiums. So if you like this section, I know I don't do a lot of indie focused stuff. Speak up, because there could be more. 15, The Max. Sam Keith's indie magnum opus. It was a 90s counterculture juggernaut because of an MTV cartoon. It got maximized by IDW because it was remastered and collected. As part of that remastering, they did slim oversized hardcovers and then fat paperbacks. If you want one of those paperbacks, good luck, because they were $100+ if you want to try to get one of them on eBay. Unfortunately, Sam Keith passed away earlier this year, an untimely demise of a magnificently huge talent, and we'll not get to see this collected all in one place. I really hope that just because he's gone doesn't mean his estate is not going to look after things like this. Could this be affordable? Hell yeah. There's never been a way to get all of the Max in one place. And at this point, I think the market for the Max is a market of people who want to go out and buy the Max. I think you got 2 books max to sell the Max in. I think dripping it out across 7 trades, that's not the strategy in 2026. Is it desirable? It has the Sam Keith pedigree, which I think matters a lot. It has the 90s nostalgia. And let me tell you, 90s is not just in right now for people who have memories of the 90s. 90s is in right now with everybody. 90s is the nostalgia decade, in the way that in the 90s we were looking at the 1970s. Time just happens to like that, and it comes for us all in the end. So I think this is the time, and I think if you wait too long, the time will pass. And could this improve? Yes, because Maximized did not address every possible Max issue. There were side stories, there were anthology stories, there was the Max story in Gay Comics, which is how I got introduced to the idea that Gay Comics was even a series. There's a Friends of Max miniseries. There are other things that they could add to this compendium to sweeten the deal even beyond what we've had in the past. I own this in a series of DC Wildstorm trades, and even those were not comprehensive. So I think there's a great chance to get a book, and the main 35 issues have all been remastered. So you wouldn't have to do a full remastering on the other issues. They would kind of just all be bonus stuff. I think this would be a great choice, and I think there are people still out there who want it. I read this recently. I would buy this. Razor saying Max collection would be amazing. Cider and Stay saying 1 volume of Max would make my indie loving self gush. Things I didn't even know. Jamie C saying the Max blew up on TikTok and X last year. A lot of you see, I didn't even know that, and there's nothing for them. That's what makes me crazy. And like, you're gonna see me pick some things on here that are definitely my 90s BS, but they're my 90s BS because I think there's people right now who want to be able to access them. Yeah, Edwin, Max ran for 35 issues. I have a whole Max guide. I don't even think it's patrons only, actually, because I think I love the Max so much that I wanted like everybody to have access to it. So I think it was one of the first ones. Yeah, that's a public guide, baby. Go nuts. crushingcrisis.com/the Max. It's the Max 1 through 35 and a half issue, a story in Darker Image #1, a story in Troll Halloween Special #1, a story story in Savage Dragon number 28, a Max mini comic, Gen 13 of Max, Friends of the Max 113, or 1 through 3, a story in Gay Comics 1980, one of the only times that Max was written outside of Keith's control, and then also some other stuff too, but that would be the primary stuff that would go in there. Oh, and also a half issue. If I did not mention that earlier, I forget if I did. So yeah, we're in the 40-something issue range for this. Okay. Next, again, not a thing that I love. I actually distinctly hate this. I looked into it, and Ren and Stimpy, the rights to this are owned by Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon has an existing relationship with IDW because they do Ninja Turtles with IDW. All of these Ren and Stimpy comics were released by Marvel. It ran surprisingly long, for like 50 issues. This is 90s dumb fun, and it's an easy thing to put out all in one shot. In a world where we're looking at getting Simpsons from the 90s and X-Files from the 90s and other things from the 90s, Ren and Stimpy kind of remains one of these absolutely ridiculous cultural milestones. And I think if there was an all-in-one collection of it, there are people that would buy it, even if it's just a stupid kids comic. So affordable, good luck grabbing these back issues. If you're looking for things towards the end of the run, they're like $10, $15 each. You are not easily going to get them. Despite desirability, despite a lack of a comeback, I think we're in the perfect nostalgia zone for this. You're going to see a lot of 90s stuff in here. Spoilers, y'all, 90s. And improved, anything's an improvement over nothing, and this is something that has nothing. What's next, Alf? Maybe. Okay, let's continue to number 13, Young Blood. Sorry, Super Jop is like, oh, you didn't warn me that you were going to sing. Okay, here's the thing. This is not just me being a crazy freak. Rob Liefeld loves to profit off of Youngblood again and again. He has remastered and redrawn and put manga speed lines on issues 1 through 4 so many times. If you want issue 5, big old F you from Daddy Rob there, because there's nothing that he does beyond that. But those things sell hugely. He's selling single issues that he's maybe drawn 10 pages of art for like 20 and 30 bucks on Whatnot. That's great, but Rob has to put effort into that. And do you know what Rob loves more than putting effort in for money? Rob loves putting very little effort in for money. Here's something that already exists, which is the complete archive of Youngblood. They don't have to be remastered. Just friggin' scan them, okay? We're not even talking about an oversized release. And guess what? There is a lot of Youngblood. Does it make the most sense? No. Is it the prettiest? No. But what there is there's a lot of it, and Rob has hung on to fandom that are still out there making Youngblood books sell like crazy every time he makes one available. The fact that he is sitting on multiple compendiums of this material, that he has colleagues like Eric Larson, like Todd McFarlane, who could instruct him step by step on how to put it together and put it out into a compendium, means that this is possible. And honestly, there were points that this was kind of interesting, because there were like multiple titles. There was Youngblood, there was Team Youngblood, then there were Bad Rock, there was Chapel. There's a lot of ways to take this. So in terms of affordable, as somebody who chased down and owns every single Youngblood issue ever published, including that stupid convention one that I had to get for like $100 from Rob, because the only way to get one after I looked for a decade, yes, this would be more affordable than the alternative. Not just because it might collect some rarities like that, but just because these issues, like, they used to be quarter bin issues, and at conventions you might be able to find them in a quarter bin, but if you're trying to like online shop for a run of this, no, because as the run went on, they got more and more scarce and lower print runs. Is it desirable? Not to the general public, and you're never going to hear me recommend it to anybody, but Liefeld has his consistent fans. And could it be improved? Yes, because not just by Rob rewriting everything, but because it could be put into a reading order. It could, like, pages could be shuffled around. Like, he could draw an insert page where he felt like he could tinker with it a little bit if he wanted to. But again, Rob, the message I want you to get from me is low effort, high return. And Rob, I'm available, and I'm not that expensive for you and for you only. Everybody else, I would be expensive. But if I could help make this a reality, I would put in the time, because Rob, it's time to collect Youngblood. Okay. Let's see. Does anyone know how the relaunch sold this? He has nothing out right now. That's not true. He just put out a new Bad Rock series and a new Youngblood giant size. The rights for this were all jacked up, but I think they have recently started to resolve because he's putting Youngblood stuff out again. You could do a compendium just of all the different initial versions of the miniseries. Edwin, there is a Youngblood guide on Crushing Crisis, because I am what? A freak. And it was the second, I forget it was the first or the second Image book after, it was the first Image book. So let's just do some math, shall we? Youngblood 1992, 1 through 10 and 0. Youngblood Strike File 1 through 11. Youngblood Battlezone 1 and 2. Youngblood Yearbook 1. Team Youngblood 1 through 22. Bloodpool 1 through 4. Riptide 1 through 2. Vogue 1 through 3. Youngblood Collector's Edition 1. Youngblood 1995 1 through 10 and 14 for some reason. Youngblood and X-Force, although who knows if you could do that in X-Force and Youngblood. Extremely Youngblood number 1. Then we go to Maximum Press. Yes, there is absolutely enough material of Youngblood. There is so much Youngblood. I'm so serious. Like, people always like, Crisis, would you want to be an editor at Marvel DC? I don't know if Marvel and DC needs me. You know who needs me? Some of these indie guys, some of these Image people. So I would love it. I would love it. Okay, we got to continue. Guess what doesn't have an easy to buy collection in 2026? If you said The Mask from Dark Horse, that's smoking! Because The Mask is one of those Dark Horse books that had these kind of slimline omnibuses. They were last reprinted, I think, in 2019 because he had a new series briefly in 2019, which was not a part of those omnibuses. This is something we can knock out in a compendium. Yeah, the Jim Carrey movie was forever ago, but this exists in the public conscious. It fits into that 90s stuff. And Dark Horse, let's not forget, just did a compendium of Barbed Wire, the famous Pamela Anderson movie. What has more name recognition in your mind? Barbed Wire or The Mask? So this could recollect those old small omnibuses. It's been over 7 years since we've had them in print. It could recollect even stuff that went beyond those. It could be definitely affordable, more affordable than tracking those down. Is it desirable? Again, The Mask, not the biggest indie comics property in the world, but one of the indie comics properties that had the biggest penetration in the 90s. And again, they've done compendiums for Ghost and Barbed Wire. Now, to be fair, I do believe that Dark Horse owns the rights on Ghost and Barbed Wire, so there's more incentive for them to put those out. But The Mask, again, just a much bigger property than either of those. Also, it's quite subversive. Like, it is not as silly as the movie. The Mask, it makes you do your darkest desires. I mean, it's really quite subversive at points. And I think people would actually be delighted to find how adult it is compared to the movie. And then improved, I will say that the old Dark Horse omnibuses do have pretty much everything you want, but this could probably do more in one book. So, Ryan didn't even know the movie was based off of a comic. The latest edition is normal sized, but it doesn't include the Walter miniseries. Great, you are a font of knowledge today. I really appreciate it. Level 87 would be tempted to get this and finally see how different it is from the Carrie movie, and Wiccan saying it's good stuff. Okay. Next, number 11. This is a personal mission of mine, as you can see on the shelf here behind me, The Tick. So, is there any other character in comics with such a massive gulf between the public recognition and, let's just face it, love for the character and the accessibility of the trades? It has taken me years to try to track down all of the Tick trades. Many of them have not been printed or reprinted since 2009 and prior. Many of them don't even say what's in them, so you don't know until you get them. And I am really good at this. If it takes me years and so much money, I hesitate to even think about it, so you would see the look on my face of me reacting to the amount of money. The common fan has not a chance of this. And the other thing is, the Tick, it's so complicated, I can't even figure out how to do a Crushing Crisis guide. There's so many different series. Ben Edlund comes and goes. Like, it's so hard to figure out what's the right order, what matters, what is a flashback, what's not. It just needs to be in a compendium. And here's the thing, New England Comics is not the company to do it. They need to give this to Clover Press or IDW. It is time to just hand the whole licensable set of art files off to somebody else and let them make you money for this book that has nostalgia, a character that is so recognizable that he's as recognizable to children from the 90s as the frigging X-Men, okay? So would this be affordable? Yes, it is impossible to put together a complete run of the Tick, even a little portion of the Tick, for less than hundreds of dollars right now. Is it desirable? Yes, because not only are those Tick collections hard to find, it's hard to even know where to begin or what's in them. And would this be an improvement? Yes, because these existing collections, first of all, the spines are friggin' wild. And second of all, they don't even, none of them have numbers on them. Like, so here's like, what, 2 compendiums worth? Look at this. So, do I have a personal interest in this? Yes. But I don't have a personal stake in it because I just spent my whole life collecting them for the past couple of years. And I'm just saying, look, is the Tick ever... who knows if there's going to be another adaptation or whatever, but in a world... in a world where there's been an animated series, there's been a live action series, it's been on Amazon Prime. I'm just saying that this is one of those books that they could just print one run of like 2,000 compendiums or whatever the print run is, and they could just sell those for the next 10 years, which is honestly what they've been doing with a lot of these books since 2009. Three shows, says Monkhouse. Spoon said, sorry I missed it, said Sam Fisher. Wouldn't it be must be iffy to do since Mike Richardson isn't at Dark Horse? Well, the thing I did not go into super deep right on this show was kind of rights issues. Like I kind of just made it through a dart at like what company might be able to print it. Sometimes you'll see some question marks. I'm not saying the mask would have to come out from Dark Horse, just like I'm saying the Tick would definitely not come out from New England Comics. I just think that it should happen. Oh, the spines. I mean, they're from the 2000s. We can't blame them too much. The Finkler. Remember when the Tick writer wrote an episode of Angel where he killed someone with a spoon? Yes, in a spoon. Or spoon. Wow! I love that we're just doing spoon versions of all my catchphrases. I love this. Number 10, Bob's Burgers from Dynamite. Bob's Burgers is now a modern cult classic. It has achieved that echelon of cartoon renewability of The Simpsons or Family Guy. It's not going anywhere. Everybody knows what it is. Everybody knows Tina Belcher. I mean, not everybody, culture. There's no monoculture in the same way there used to be, but like Bob's Burgers is a thing. And it was a thing at Dynamite. They did an initial miniseries and then they did an ongoing series, and it's only ever been collected in single things. Now, Dynamite is the ruler of making big money off of recollecting things. They have gone to Kickstarter repeatedly. So would a Bob's Burgers Kickstarter do pretty good? Do you think? So affordable, one compendium of this would retail for equal or possibly less than the price of getting each of the original trades at cover price. Desirable, this is a TV series that's always out there. Every time a new season starts to be on air, that is another chance to sell another 500 or 1,000 copies. You have to think that anything that is a TV show, viewership of TV shows are measured in fractions of a million. And even if only 1% of those viewers decide that they might want to buy a book, that's your whole print run. That's why Dynamite exists as a company with some of the licenses that they have. Like I know some of us like look at this stuff and we're like, oh, does anybody want a Bob Burgers comic book? The answer is yes. Once you can become a media property, the audience for your book is so much huger than it ever was before. So this is desirable, and it could be improved because it could put together all those things that were previously in different trades. Now, they have done a few free comic book day issues. I did not track them down one by one, so I don't know if they just reprint stories from the actual previous series or if they're original material, but they do have new covers, so that could be in there as well. But yeah, to me, this is like so obvious, so easy, so obvious. Jason wishing me a great stream, and we'll do his listen tomorrow at work. I wish home movies blew up like Bob's Burgers did, says Razor Raymond. And anime didn't even have, had an idea that there was a Bob Burgers comic book. Yeah, but Mr. Reborn has never heard of it, so not everyone. Only Kane, amazing show. The cookbook is pretty good too. Okay. Number 9. This came from Wiccan, and I did some research, and I talked to Wiccan. You're not even the biggest Sonic freak in my life, if you can imagine that. This is Sonic the Hedgehog, the Archie years. So this is the holy grail of Sonic comics for majors fans of this fuzzy little blue speedster. There have been 2 attempts to collect these Archie comic books, and they both fizzled, because this is a 290 issue run that ran for, if I did the math right, 24 years. I mean, that kind of works out. 24 times 12, 290. And there were side series. There were so many Archie Sonic comics. Now, right now, the license for Sonic is at IDW. And IDW is doing their beautiful hardcover IDW collections of their own Sonic comic, which is great. We ain't got time for that with a 290 issue one. We just saw IDW do 50 issue compendiums of their own Turtles comics. That means they would take 6 compendiums to do this, not even with any of the side series. And let me tell you, if you don't have any Sonic fans in your life, the Sonic fans are wild. They are so dedicated to their little guy. They made them take the teeth out of his mouth in that movie. That they get what they want, and they are serious about it. Just like Kelly Clarkson and Since You've Been Gone. So I really think that this could make money and would have legs. So would it be affordable? Hell yeah. If you go look on my comic shop for these single issues, there's this weird phenomenon where a lot of these like smaller 90s and 2000s books, yeah, you can go to conventions and hunt them down quarter bin by quarter bin, but if you want to try to find them online, they're like $10 and $15 each because the print ones were small. And so the difference is like most people know that like it's going to take forever to sell it at $10, so they'll just chuck them into the quarter bins at a convention or the dollar bins, whatever it is now. I don't know. I live in America anymore. But like actually based on scarcity, they get priced much higher. So you do not want to try to put these, a lot of them, I just spot checked, could I find them? I could not even find them for sale on the internet. A lot of these 290 issues. Desirable. It's great that IDW is doing their series, but I think the hardcore long-term Sonic fans, I think they want this one. And improved, yes, because they printed like a bunch of random trades that this would collect all the way through and past. And there's a bunch of Sonic side series that we could get into this as well. Josh09 saying this is a crazy poll. Only Kane saying this has Geo written all over it. Superdrop saying gotta go thick. Razor saying Geo would love this. Phantom Maximo saying Omnidog's favorite series. Is that true? Is that something I never knew about Omnidog? That was crazy. Yes, Monk, 290 issues. This would be hard to print because of Ken Penders. I don't know who Ken Penders is. I didn't go that deep on this. You will have to tell me later. Wiccan saying Blue Streak speeds by Sonic the Hedgehog. So, yeah, I hate Joss with the deep lore. I hate that War and Peace is so skinny on that cover. The font must be 2 pixels because he's running through a bunch of books. There's so many cute covers to choose from on this one. And Mr. Reborn saying Sonic is like Donald Duck. You can do anything with those characters. Just add a speed running element, and Chris Brogan confirming from the slide before that the free comic book days were just best of the series. Yarn Paul saying there's nothing you could do to me that would make me read this. Okay, let's continue. We're only number 9. Number 8, I didn't do a lot of straight up creator owned Image stuff because I just found that as I was looking at my rubric, things that had some kind of media tie tended to be a little bit more desirable. But I think Manhattan Projects from Image is a slam dunk. Most of Jonathan Hickman's creator-owned work is quite short up until we get to East of West. Or, you know, Marvel, but that's not creator-owned. The exception was Manhattan Projects. Manhattan Projects, I love the series. I love the series so much, I used to just blind buy it and give copies of it to all of my friends who were scientists, who all loved it. Because it is about the real-world nuclear scientists of the 1940s. But if they were dealing with a multiple reality situation, it's almost like, imagine if you had Oppenheimer, who I think was played by Robert Downey Jr., dealing with incursions like those motivated by another character, Dr. Doom, played by Robert Downey Jr. It's almost as if you would want to release this in a year where Robert Downey Jr., who is Oppenheimer, is playing Dr. Doom. But more than that, it's just because it's like the first long Hickman series. He came back and did a mini series afterwards. I think there's some noise about like he didn't finish it the way he wanted to finish it. Y'all, it's finished. Daddy Hickman has moved on to other things. It only got a few deluxe hardcovers. They did not finish it in deluxe hardcovers, so you could only have it all in original trades. I looked around the house and I could not figure out if I actually have the final original trade for this or not, but I love the series. But more to the point, Hickman stuff sells, and so much of his indie books are either like these little brief miniseries, or they're this 3 worlds 1 moon thing, which is almost like a world setting more than it is a story. This is one of his most marketable books, and it's kind of wild to me that it's not in Compendium. So it would absolutely be affordable. And Hickman has been on the record saying he doesn't really want to do deluxe hardcovers of the back catalog of his indie stuff because he just doesn't see it as practical to keep in print. He likes big compendiums for that. And there's just never been a better time to collect it, as I just said, and it would improve because it's been over 10 years since it has been collected. Yeah, never finished. It's finished. It's finished. Put it in Compendium. That's what I say. Okay. Cillian Murphy is, oh, that's right. Robert Downey Jr. is somebody else. Oh, well, this is why I have live fact checking. Whatever. So Cillian Murphy was Oppenheimer. It's still saying, my point remains that this is like real life scientists dealing with the idea of incursions, and that's going to be in the zeitgeist for the next months. Okay. Clearly, I don't watch movies. I just read comic books. Number 7, Skybound, Transformers, the IDW years. So Skybound was great in doing a Kickstarter for Transformers for the Marvel years. And they are the years that have the most kind of visual recognition, right? But the thing is, the hardcore Transformers fans loved the IDW years. And the IDW years were coming out in these beautiful IDW hardcovers, which they never quite finished. Do I think Skybound will ever finish them? Maybe as a bonus on a Kickstarter campaign for these compendiums. Because here's the thing. It's like a whole satisfying and surprisingly mature Transformers universe. I think that's an easy sell, but I think if you just do it in the comics, the DM, it's just going to sell the same 1,000 copies that it used to sell. I'm sure through Hasbro, they can get that number, and they know the number is not high enough to tempt them as Skybound. The thing you do with this is you Kickstart it. And the great thing is, they just went back to a Kickstarter for a second G.I. Joe campaign, so there's a precedent that they would go back to Kickstarter for a second Transformers campaign. Now, this does not continue those original Transformers comics the way that the G.I. Joe stuff continued Joe. Joe was continued separately at IDW, and maybe that will be a third campaign at some point. But the material is just so high quality, and again, I think Transformers fans are such a huge, huge buying public that if you give them a media-oriented pledge for this campaign, and you're like, here's another massive box of Transformers stuff you can have in your house, it will just sell. Do I know that what fans really want is the end of those deluxe editions? Yes. But again, maybe if there was a Kickstarter, maybe that could be like some kind of like added bonus or something. Monkhouse saying, if they did this, I would finally commit to reading Transformers. Kiwi saying, yes to IDW Transformers, #1 pick for me so far. IDW Transformers would be a license to print money. IDW never finished their hardcovers of this, did they? No. Yarnapulse tried to get into this, but it was difficult to get into. But Ryan Garcia has always wanted to check the series out, but it's so out of print, a compendium would be great. The IDW years are actually more popular among younger fans. By younger, I mean 90s kids. Yeah, because they were like there for it as it was happening. And the Figler is saying Transformers fans will spend hundreds of dollars on identical figures, so this wouldn't be a hard sell. If the Kickstarter quality, slam dunk buy. Okay, #6 on my indies list. Boom Studios, ? Magic the Gathering Classic. This is my favorite Magic the Gathering card, although the card art was different. It's Nightmare by Melissa Benson, but I don't really have skin in the game here. I don't play Magic that actively anymore. I sometimes fired up to play with one friend of mine online. But here's what's really interesting about Magic that is so different about all of these other indie series and the indie material. Magic the Gathering was huge business in 1995, I recall, because I was contributing to that business, and those cards are in the next room from this one, all sitting in long boxes of cards. But what was really interesting is Magic graduated from this general fantasy game to a game with lore. The lore text on the cards started to be more specific. There started to be more backstory, but there was no way for them to tell that story just with the cards, and especially cards that were just being sold in like little booster packs. It wasn't even like the starter packs for the main revised edition series, because that didn't have as much lore. The series that had lore tended to be the expansions, which only came in these 12 or 15 card packs. And like, how could you tell a story with that when they were just in a booster card box on a counter? So that's when Magic started to expand into other arenas. Speaking of which, the first Magic the Gathering novel was a book, I think it was called The Arena, or at least the card that came with it was called The Arena. And I have 2 of that card because I bought 2 of the books. So I'd have 2 of the cards. It can make 2 of your creatures fight outside of your combat phase. But the point is that all of that Magic lore was told in initial comic books. There was just a whole series of miniseries that explored all the lore of all of those expansions, of Ice Age, of Fallen Empires, of all of those 90s things. And the thing about Magic is lore never goes away. Unlike Dungeons and Dragons, they don't kind of like revise or like correct the lore to make a new version of it as they go. Magic pretty much has still had all of the same world lore about all of their various different planes of Magic ever since that original stuff in the 90s. So we're talking about 30 years worth of lore here. Now, there was a new Magic series and it did fine in on the market, but I just think that there's a chance to market this, especially if you market it in a big affordable compendium, especially if they're going back to print on some classic cards with like updated art or whatever, because the way Magic the card pool works is they're always like bringing old cards back into print and changing the mix of cards, and like something lore that got mentioned years and years ago comes back, they bring back Urza, they do something. Having one big compendium of that is so attractive. It's something that they could co-market with release events. There are stores that have Magic drafts every single Friday. Like if you're not a Magic the Gathering person, you do not understand how big business we are talking about here. This is what keeps some stores alive 365 days a year. So is it affordable? Yeah. And a lot of these have never been collected ever, ever, ever. There was never initial trades. They were just single issues. Is it desirable? Yes. For this audience in Compendium, especially if it is somehow positioned as like a lore drop of the Magic the Gathering universe, absolutely. I think it's desirable. And is it improved? I think what makes it improved is not only the fact that it could exist, but also like, what if they just put some old design documents in these books? What if they put some original card art? Like if Wizards of the Coast actually has the rights to all of these comics, and then the sky's the limit because they could intersperse their own stuff in that. And again, Magic fans will devour, especially because Magic fans are so butthurt right now, me included. And I'm not even a big Magic player. I only dabble occasionally about all of the expanded worlds. I forget what it's called, but it's like when they have like X-Men Magic cards and Ninja Turtle Magic cards. This, to me, this is my Magic. Make my Magic great again. I want a fucking horse on fire through the sky. I do not want a Star Trek starship. So like for a lot of fans who like classic Magic, this would scratch the itch. And oh my gosh, you guys are saying a lot of things. Magic had a comic, huh? Magic cards had such amazing art. I would not mind some old Magic comics. The newer stuff ain't great. Bear's Lair, another Compendium buy. I play a lot of Commander, huge format. If you've never seen this channel called Spell Slayers, it's two of my favorite drag performers, Bosco and Irene the Alien, who are like really, really good Magic the Gathering players. And they had appeared on other people's channels at first playing Magic. And then they realized that like, wow, we're as good as all these Magic channels. So they have their own Magic channel and they invite all sorts of people on. Sometimes they put them in drag. Sometimes they play like special Commander formats, but they have like weekly shows and it is highly, highly entertaining. So even though I don't really actively play Magic, I continue to consume Magic through them. True flavor text. I draw a Compendium. Edwin, impressed with how deep I went on my picks. I told you these, I mean, even though I have unique things to say about a lot of these, it's because I just lived through it. A lot of them are things I would not be like excited to buy necessarily, although I probably would buy this. There's a Magic movie coming out. Oh my gosh, if there's a movie coming out, we need Compendiums. Okay, and Universes Beyond, that's what I was looking for. Was a mistake. Dylan T. Docherty saying, happy Sunday from being formerly known as Hayden. Oh my gosh, good thing you gave me a reminder because you know how bad I am with all of the names. Okay, top 5. Now, this is kind of cheating. Not only because we know it's a Crisis favorite, but because this weekend on Near Mint Condition, Dynamite's collected editor got on and said, this is coming. So it's kind of a gimme. But the other thing that's coming is a new X-Files series from Ryan Coogler. And these Topps comics, here's the thing, they were collected when IDW got the X-Files license in the mid-2010s. And that was in 2013. They put out trades of this, I think, 42 issue series. But the trades could have been better. So that improvement statistic that I'm looking for, there's a possibility for improvement there. Because all of the trades, they didn't have the episode adaptation comics. They basically put out OGNs adapting specific, very famous episodes. Those weren't in the trades. There were also some other kind of like side series and like magazine stories. They were not in the trade. So if all of that is available to Fox as a licensor, that could all be in here. But even if they weren't all in here, it took forever to get all those trades out. I think it was like 4 editions. So like, why do in 4 what you could do in 1? And it could be at a similar price per page. X-Files is one of those properties that will always have rabid fans. The fans are older though. I've been surprised even people that are not that much younger than me, like 7, 8 years younger than me, but even especially friends that are like 20 years younger than me, they're like, X-Files, like they've heard of it, but it doesn't have that Buffy quality where like people have gone back and watched it. So I don't think that there's as big of an audience for this as maybe there could have been 10 years ago, but it's about to come back. And every time a media property comes back, there's millions of potential buyers. Some of these comics are really good. And honestly, the Dynamite editor, you should go watch on Near Mint Condition. He was like, I love a lot of these comics. I'm a fan. I remember how hard it was to track them down. So I actually have high faith that this is going to show up. J. Michael White says that he really needs the Buffy and Angel compendiums. I will spoil for you now. I didn't put them on here because most of them got reprinted relatively recently by Boom when Boom had the license. Everything got reprinted except for the Angel After the Fall stuff. And we know Dynamite has the license. And we know Dynamite has said that they want to reprint them. So for me, there were too many factors that kind of took, I mean, it was on my list, but it just didn't hit my top 15. X-Files, because it's been since 2013 and because the trades really didn't perfect the collection, there was a lot of improvability there. And so I felt like X-Files was a little bit more important to put on the list than Buffy, which I would love more Buffy collections, but it has been collected correctly in the past. And hello to Spitzcop Flary. Y'all, we have to get through Indie and then we haven't even done Marvel yet. Number 4, Supreme. Now, hear me out, because this is something that I personally enjoy. and own every issue of already, so I can't benefit from this. But there's a reason that I have it this high. Rob Liefeld, come and collect your bag. If Youngblood is the thing that people will begrudgingly buy, Supreme was Invincible of the 90s. He was Rob Liefeld doing a Superman riff, but like, what if Superman was more grounded in the real world? What if he really was an alien from another planet and like he wasn't benevolent and altruistic all the time? And honestly, even from the start, it was a really interesting concept. Rob Liefeld is a great concept guy. And as the run went on, it kind of like grew and grew in its mythology, and the mythology got more and more interesting. And at the end of the run, Alan Moore shows up and goes full Alan Moore on it. Now, we would probably need 2 compendiums to get through all of that, because the series itself, I think, runs something like 60 issues. Again, there's a guide on Crushing Crisis. This one might be patrons only. And then there's like Lady Supreme and Kid Supreme. I'm telling you, it's a lot like, it was very much Liefeld doing a riff on Miracle Man, in a way, and then also something that Kirkman riffs on again for Invincible, because it's just part of the storied history and vocabulary of comic books. Supreme does not have the name recognition of The Mask or Magic the Gathering or X-Files. But I think in terms of like where this lies in comic book history and the creators that worked on it and the absolute hunger for the back half of the run that has the Alan Moore stuff, I think for those reasons, this would be a great 2-and-out compendium. And again, Rob, no additional effort involved. You already have this property. Let's just make some money. So could it be affordable? Yeah. And if you think I was whining about how expensive the Youngblood stuff was, Supreme, much more expensive. It was always printed, had a lower print run than Youngblood, even from the beginning. And of course, then you have the Alan Moore factor at the end. I spent some crazy money trying to track down Alan Moore singles. And this is why I'm not in the singles game. I only did this because I was moving to New Zealand and I was like, this is my chance, because there's probably not even a single copy of some of these issues in New Zealand. Desirable, yes, because a lot of it has kind of like acquired a little bit of a legend status. And again, if you go and read those first 10 issues somewhere, if you find them in a back issue bin, I'm not telling you those are great. I'm telling you the whole thing as a whole has a status. And I'm not comparing it to Miracle Man in quality. I'm saying it is one of many riffs on that idea. And in terms of improved, we've never had it all collected. So the improvement is absolutely. Oh, but Dr. Zero saying Rob doesn't own Supreme. I did not research all of these as deeply because they're indie and it was a rabbit hole that is never ending. So maybe it's not Rob Liefeld's bag to get. Maybe he only got Youngblood back. Supreme is owned by the same people that own Youngblood, but didn't he get Young? Anyway, it's not why we're here. Number 3, again, big hits that everybody's going to buy. Boom Studios, Adventure Time. And this has multiple big hit factors. We're getting into not only nostalgia for the 90s right now, but nostalgia for the 2000s, the 2010s, because those former kids are grown up and they have income. Plus, Boom never recollected this. It was like 17 original trades. They did a few recollection hardcovers, but it never made it all the way through. And they did one big chunky hardcover that was like a comic book day special edition or something. Oh, and by the way, do you know who writes a huge, huge chunk of the initial portion of this? Ryan North. Ryan North of Marvel, Ryan North of Fantastic Four, Ryan North of Squirrel Girl, Ryan North, I believe, currently running The Flash. So this not only has the nostalgia factor, not only has the media property that is beloved factor, but it has like a current hot comic book writer who created it. You want to get all those trade collections? Good luck. Good luck tracking down all 17 of them. And if you want that one oversized version that was a comic book store special, good luck with that too. Adventure Time fans are all grown up now, and North is a huge hit now. I knew it at the time. When I saw him on Adventure Time back then, I was like, I don't even like Adventure Time. When I had to choose my fighter, I chose Steven Universe. But I was like, wow, Ryan North writing Adventure Time? To me, at the time, that was a big deal. And that was before everybody knew really who he was. Plus, this improves upon it because there were 17 trades and 9 hardcovers, but we could easily get through it in like 3-4 compendiums. So it's immediately an improvement on that. Oh no, there's already compendiums. Potato Evolution. League of Comic Book Geeks might have misled me, or my search foo was just off last night, because maybe the children are not wikiing it well. Well, this is why you fact check it live, y'all. I put it at number 3 and it already exists. I guess we're gonna have to call one up from the reserves, and I'll have to tell you it was ranked number 16. I swear to God, I spent so much time looking. Adventure. We're not going to get hung up on this, but usually I'm so good at fact checking. Did I just not type the word compendium? There it is. Okay. Well, again, this is why we do it live, because how embarrassing would it be if I just did all this as a pre-recorded video and then I couldn't correct myself? Yeah, there it is. And it even collects the individual stories. I don't know why I had such a problem identifying that. I don't know. Okay, but we're not going to linger on that. Well, let me go and see what my number 16 pick was for indie, because we're going to have to replace this one. Hold one moment, please. Let's see. My next down pick that I did not name for indie was Back to the Future from IDW, which I don't think got a compendium. So if Adventure Time was not on the list, we would have done Back to the Future. Okay, number 2, this one I know that I'm right. It's Dark Horse Dungeons and Dragons. Now, Dark Horse is the most recent publisher to have the Dungeons and Dragons license, but they've been at many places over the years. Previously, they did do, or I forget if it was Dark Horse or not, but I think it was IDW. IDW had the license in the 2010s, and they did classic collections of the DC Comics stuff, which is one of the issues I show here. And then they even did like sort of pseudo omnibus compendiums of them, but there were multiple different series of DC Comics, and they didn't do that for all of them. Then there was all of these IDW years of Dungeons and Dragons. So here's the thing. Dungeons and Dragons kind of waxes and wanes in its popularity. I think we're in a light wane right now. I think it was absolutely doing monster numbers during the pandemic and like 2022. That would have been the time to strike while the iron was hot, or maybe when the movie came out. But there's just so many Dungeons and Dragons comic books. And the thing is that even as the Dungeons and Dragons books move on, some of the characters and lore remain beloved. One of those characters being Drist, who is one of the characters from one of the Dungeons and Dragons settings. When IDW had the license, they did a bunch of comics with him. Have they ever been recollected all into one place? No, they have not. So I just think there's a lot of options here. And the great thing is it's not just one single compendium line. They could do a Dark Sun compendium. They could do a Forgotten Realms compendium. They could do a Drizzt compendium. There's a whole line of Dungeons and Dragons books. And again, I just think that sometimes for some of these hobbies, even though they're collector hobbies, it's like, I don't know that the Dungeons and Dragons fans are going to come out in force for like a monthly comic book, just like the Magic the Gathering fans might not, because like that's not how their brain works in terms of release schedule. For Dungeons and Dragons fans, like you buy the core rule books, and then if there's like a new rule book that has like stuff that you want in it, you get it. But you're not like primed to show up somewhere and like do something every month. Now they're trying to turn Dungeons and Dragons fans into that with things like D&D Beyond, but like that's not the mindset. But the mindset is buy the book, put it on your shelf. So I just think that it's like, these should just be available. They should be out there. It's something that should be buyable. And you know what? If they do poorly, then I was wrong. But I don't think all of the Dungeons and Dragons material would do as well as all of the other Dungeons and Dragons material, but I think some of this material would do well just on name alone. I think some of it would do well just on art alone. And I think some of it would do well because actually there is specific nostalgia for it. Chris Brogan is verifying my number 16 substitute pick for Back to the Future. It had 2 complete collections, but only collected the main series. It doesn't seem, and they are not very readily available. So that's what we would have had if we had not had that Adventure Time. Speak no more of that. Only Kane saying Critical Role helped D&D get back in the spotlight with geek culture. Now Critical Role is its own thing. And John Rogers' D&D book from IDW was really good, says Exposing Comics. All right, what is my number 1 indie book that ought to be, or image, indie or image, that ought to be compendiumized? It's not Dungeons and Dragons. It's not Magic the Gathering. It's not the Max. Is it me deep on my bullshit? Is it something that I really, really love and request? What is it? I think it's Star Trek, which I like, but I'm not, I've said many a time that I'm a Star Trek viewer. I am not a Star Trek reader. There have been so many Star Trek comics. There were Star Treks from Western publications. There was Star Trek at Marvel. There was Star Trek at DC. There was a modern Kelvin timeline at IDW. Hardly any of this has ever been collected. And if it has been collected, it was like modern stuff that just got original trades or like a brief, scant effort at collecting like 12 issues of something from the 80s. This is an inexhaustible treasure trove of recollection. It has easily marketable line names because the lines of it generally correspond with one of the TV shows. And you could call it classic. You could call it the Lost Years. There's all sorts of ways you could go. Is it all canonical? No. The TV show and the movies, they're never going to pay attention too closely to what's in the comics until very recently when they've really started to coordinate that well. But I'm not talking about the most recent stuff. I'm talking about the vast and storied history. I look through so many different collections that they've done, trade paperbacks that they've done, even taking all of that into account, even if we never wanted to touch any of the stuff that previously reprinted, there is so much more to do, and none of those were compendium size. I just think there's so much opportunity here. There's so much material, and Star Trek is one of those things, again, put it on Kickstarter, make it a media hit. If you just release this through the direct market, there are only so many Star Trek fans you are going to reach through the direct market. The millions of those Star Trek fans, I have so many people in my life who are massive Star Trek fans, they do not know shit about going to a comic book store, going on DCBS. They don't know anything about that. The way you have to market this is through geek media channels, and there is just so much of it. Monkhouse saying more of a built-in audience than just about any property. Also, there's a comic about the security in the red shirts, very fun. The old novels are a lot of fun. Edric, Ellen, and Cedric loving the red shirts comic. This is anything Star Trek, Wiccan. Just the whole world of Star Trek. We need some Star Trek compendiums, original series. I don't think there's been a ton of Next Generation comics. There were Deep Space Nine comics. There's been so many Star Trek comics, and again, different layers of continuity. So they would have to work out how they want to label them. I'm not volunteering to be hired for this. I'm not a Star Trek expert, but as I looked across all of indie comics, and so many people made so many other interesting suggestions, I hesitate to read them all because I feel like maybe we'll do another show at some point. Wiccan was really stumping for various Archie comics. I was looking at Barbarella from Dynamite. I was looking at Zorro. I mean, I have a huge list, but of everything I researched, it just seems that there's the most open field possibility here with Star Trek. Okay, yeah, Malibu did deassign, so clearly there's a lot of rights issues, and what I think you've learned is I did not look too closely at rights issues for this. All right, well, you made it this far. Now we're talking Marvel, and we're doing 15 Marvel books, so there's more of this stream to come, baby. But you've heard me talk about Marvel so many times. So now we're going to talk about Marvel compendiums. And the first thing we're going to say is why or how or what, who, when, what are going on with compendiums at Marvel. So we can see from DC that compendiums don't have to take the place of Epic Collections, because at DC, compendiums haven't taken the place of DC Finest. But we also know, at least I seem to know, nobody else wants to admit it, the Epic line is winding down. And at the point that the Epic line is completed, would Marvel rather reprint a bunch of like epics or start printing compendiums that could have 2 or 3 epics in them each? I think compendiums are the future. However, I am not here to have that fight with you. So when I picked these compendiums, I really focused on material that is fundamentally unepicable for some reason, and you'll see what that means, or maps that could alter or improve an epic. So what I did not do is just go across my epic shelf behind me and say, we could have a Hawkeye, we could have an Incredible Hulk, we could have an Iron Fist, we could have an Iron Man. That's not what this is. I really put time and effort into thinking, how could this be different than just reprinting the epic collections? Because I know that that is a touchy subject, and I think that compendiums at Marvel could be a lot more than that. So strap in, y'all, because we're about to do Marvel. But by the way, I hope you like that indie segment. I would do an indie video every week if there was an audience for it. Past statistics have told me that is not the case, so I will give you that indie content in a spoonful of sugar full of DC and Marvel, and many of you will like it even more. Okay, my number 15, X-Men Magic to Hell and Back. What is it? Track Illyana's whole journey. Y'all, she's in Marvel Took On. She's in Marvel Rivals. Every time there's some kind of Marvel multimedia thing, she's in it. She was in Midnight Suns. The general game-playing public know who this character is, and there is not one book for them to buy. They are walking into their comic stores and their bookstores and saying, I like this chick with this sword, and the only thing that those stores have to sell to them are either a New Mutants omnibus where she comes and goes, or a brand new Magic series that's in the current X-Men line, which is actually one of the better ones in the line. There's no Magic book. How easy it would be to just do all of her story, showing her original descent into Limbo, her age up, her key stories from New Mutants. We did a whole mapping show about this in Near Mint Condition. You could get all the way to X Infernus. She would go to hell, come into the real world, become a kid again, die, and come back all in one book, and you could sell it for $60. This is a license to print money. So it could be affordable, because there's not only could it do it at a compendium price point, but there's no affordable way. You think of how many omnibuses we're talking about to get through that. And X-Men, all 3 New Mutants, additional New Mutants omnibuses, a trade paperback from New X-Men Academy X, probably the Fatal Attractions book to see her dying. Like, you're talking about having to get this much bookshelf for a character that people are right now playing in a new fighting game and being like, she's cool. Is there anything to read about? Oh, no, I guess not. Sale lost. Okay. Magic, my third favorite X-Men. Magic, yes, please. This is printing money. 1,000,000,000%. I don't know. I can't count those zeros. One Wheelchair X loves the sound of this. Carl Alexandria Garcia. There's a lot of different names in there. Yeah, they just haven't capitalized. There's no book. And you know what? If you're not going to do it, you want to do it as a compact comic, fine. But I am telling you, there's enough Magic material, and she has enough of an arc, and we already mapped it for you. Do get Oddfell as one of your alternate cover star. Like, come on, people. Okay. Number 14. I made 2 exceptions with the whole, like, we shouldn't be releasing at the same time as epics, and there are exceptions with great intent. So, Daredevil. Finally, the modern era epic collections collected all of Daredevil 1998 properly in one cohesive collection that combined the initial Kevin Smith run into the Bendis run, did not skip the David Mack issues, and for that we're thankful, because that's never happened in an omnibus before. They kind of pieced it together. Great. Love that for us. So kind. However, there's a ton of other Daredevil material off to the side of that. So much so, and so well liked, that this has been in the top 60 of the Marvel Tiger Eyes poll, a companion book. Now this, I'm not pitching you a companion book. I'm saying all of this extra material that's not in the epic collections, because Marvel's so fucking lazy that they didn't get any of the modern epics right, because they just farted out a bunch of stuff that they already knew that they had files for. So even with the epic collections existing, even with the omnibuses existing, there's this huge hunger. And plus, let's not beat around the bush. Any new format that they're going to launch at Marvel should start with Daredevil. Daredevil is their bookshop guy. He is their bookshelf guy. He is their hero that everybody always wants to buy first, whether that's Frank Miller, whether that's like a Mark Waid, a Bendis. Every new format at Marvel always has Daredevil relatively early. So why would that be any different for Compendium? So this could be similar to the epic collections, but I think it just mixes in all these other series: Daredevil Ninja, Daredevil Redemption, Daredevil Spider-Man, all of these things that got left behind that fans want so bad that they're voting for a whole ass omnibus compendium of it. So it would be a lower price point than the epics with much better coverage. It's highly desirable, not only because Daredevil is always desirable, but because the companion on its own is in the top 60 of the omnibus poll, and it's a great improvement, right? This is an example of something that Marvel, and you're going to see a lot of this in my Marvel choices, because I know Marvel way better than I know Indie and DC. There are ways to put out these compendiums in a way that nobody feels cheated, that everybody feels like they're getting something new and different and unique. And that could be something that is special for them. Satyr and Sage would love this. Grace and Flows would love all of these, wouldn't we? Jamie C is just off to map that magic. You got to go to the Map My X. We mapped that really, really well. Jeremiah Olsen saying a Polish publisher released actually something like this about 5 years ago as Ultimate Collection Volume 0. That is so cool. Aemon the Fool saying instant buy for me. Next, similar choice, Captain America, the complete Brubaker era. Now again, much like Daredevil, Brubaker Cap, Winter Soldier, it's always the first thing in every new format. It was one of the first modern epic collections. It was the first Marvel premiere. It's like, it was, it's one of some of the earliest omnibuses of modern material. Marvel's always going to, and for good reason, because it's absolutely outstanding, fantastic, couldn't possibly be better comic books, okay? No complaints at all there. However, much like Daredevil, there's a whole lot of other non-Brubaker material. And Marvel, like Wile E. Coyote running into a tunnel that's been drawn on a wall, makes the same mistake every time where they just put the Brubaker stuff together. Now, it's not necessarily a mistake, because everybody loves Brubaker, and you don't necessarily want to interrupt the Brubaker stuff. But in that same period, there were tons of retcon series, some of which were really good, like Captain America, Black Panther, Flags of Our Fathers, that were coming out at the same time as this, and informed it, and were informed by it. And then at the end of Brubaker, Captain America has this team-up title that was written by Cullen Bunn that usually isn't collected with Brubaker. So even though we're still wrapping up the Brubaker stuff in Epic collections, A, certainly hasn't stopped Marvel from also selling it as a premiere, and B, there's just more to do here. There's a different way to collect it that is unique, that could be better, and you wouldn't have to like put those retcon issues or whatever in between issues of Brubaker, run them at the back of the book, right? There are also a number of one-shots. There were like 75th anniversary one-shots or something like that. There's just so much additional material that you could put in there that could finally complete this era. It has never once been collected in a complete way. So could it just be Brubaker again? Yes. And would that sell? Yes. And would that be fine? Yes. But do I think there's a chance to do something bigger, greater, different than just doing Brubaker again? Absolutely. And honestly, a lot of that side stuff was also very, very high quality. Def Kiss says Cap was killing it at that time. Ryan Garcia saying, as somebody who always votes for this in the poll, I need this. Jamie C, I'm surprised these are not outside the top 10. Well, here's the thing. They were so recently in Epic Collection, and the Epic lines are still ongoing for both of them, that they were a little, score-wise, they ranked a little lower because they've very recently been collected. You'll see. As we get higher, the stuff gets more unique. I'm so excited for this. This started with me in my car being like, what would I do if I was Marvel? And this whole stream came out of this. Should I have split it into 2 streams because maybe we could get more views that way? Maybe. But I'm a freak. No, Ryan, it doesn't matter to Brubaker's run. I just said that. It doesn't matter. I'm just saying it all came out at the same time, and like the easy way to make it feel like people are getting something extra, people are getting an improvement, is to just do the Green Lantern play and just collect everything from the period. Okay. Number 12, Fantastic Four by Jonathan Hickman. This was the last one that I added to this list because I was like, but it's already been an omnibus. But they haven't gone back to print on the omnibuses anytime recently. They didn't go back to print on the omnibuses in time for the movie. For the Avengers movie, they're putting the Avengers stuff in omnibus instead of this. But everybody knows that this is like where the road to Secret War began. So let's begin by putting this in Compendium. And then after this comes out in 2 Compendiums, then we could put the Avengers books in Compendium, which at that point will have been out in omnibus again for a while. And then we could put Secret Wars in Compendium. Do all of Hickman in Compendium. Honestly, it's like one of those no-brainer things that's easy to make money off of. And why put this out in omnibus again? They had 2 shots at omnibus. Lead with it in Compendium. So this is another one of those things that every day there's people on Reddit. Every day there's people in League of Comic Book Geeks being like, is there some cheap way to pick this up? And everybody's like, no, unfortunately, Marvel refuses to keep it in print. Compendiums would be such an easy way for Marvel to finally have evergreen material. You know what? I've come around in the process of doing the show. I don't think omnibuses should be evergreen. Mostly. Some of them should. But I think when we're just talking about material that should be evergreen, like material that should be available all the time, omnibuses are too expensive and too much of a luxury good. Epics takes too many to cover it. Compendiums is the way. This list of 15 could absolutely double as an evergreen list for Marvel. I think the way to keep big swaths of material that everybody's always asking for in print, I think it's Compendiums. Now, the unfortunate thing about this is there's really no way to improve it. The omnibuses are mapped perfectly. There's nothing to add. There's nothing to do. I mean, there were like some other Fantastic Four one-shots in this period, but unlike Captain America, I would not adulterate this Hickman stuff with that because the Hickman stuff is already in like perfect order. Fresh strongly disagrees. Oh, maybe with the fact that I was saying that omnibuses shouldn't be evergreen. I'm not saying I don't like omnibuses all of a sudden, but I'm saying they're a luxury good. The idea of like people being like, I've always wanted Hickman and omnibus, and you've got to keep these 2 $100 books in print in order to make that happen. And honestly, they're going to probably be even more the next time they get printed. They'll be like $125 versus 2 $60 compendiums. I just think like the lower price point makes it easier to keep in print and it makes it easier for people to buy it. And I think the sales velocity will be higher too. There are things I think still should be always available in omnibus, but like DC has figured this out. There's things that are always in omnibus and there's things that are always in compendium so far. I did notice that In Stock Trades just went out of stock of the Green Lantern Compendium Volume 1 again, so I bet it's going to go back to a 3rd printing. Okay. By the way, if you want to ask me questions that are not on the path between here and my #1 Marvel book, you want to go to the after show. The URL is in the description below if you're watching live. If you're not watching live, that is archived later on Crushing Crisis for Patreons only. So definitely join me in the after show after if I have any kind of voice or attention span left. But first, number 11, Punisher, Frank Castle, The War Begins. So again, do I want to see this in omnibus? Yes. Do I have a high amount of faith that Marvel will do it correctly in omnibus? Absolutely not. Because as we saw in the Tiger Eyes poll, if you put all this together and you put all of the Punisher series together into one omnibus line, we're talking about like 9, 10, 11 omnibuses. It will go on forever. And I just don't know that Marvel has the confidence that Punisher is that big of a seller in omnibus. We'll see next year with the Rucka omnibus, but that's been demanded for so long and it's got Rucka's name on it. So who knows if that's really going to be an indicator. They already missed the boat on doing this right in Epics. His Epic line is actually getting pretty close to complete. Just wrap up the Epic line, set it aside, and then go back to the beginning and put out one of these compendiums that makes it obvious that you're going to collect Punisher and Punisher War Journal and Punisher Warzone and all the holiday specials and all the original graphic novels all in one book. I think Punisher is the perfect thing for that, because I don't think a lot of Punisher fans are fans who've heard of the Punisher, who've seen the Punisher shirt, who have seen the Punisher on Disney Plus or in the Spider-Man movie, and they just want to sample it. I don't think Punisher fans necessarily are fans that want this like archival hardcover bookshelf. I'm not saying there's none of you. I mean, this was in the top 10 on the Tiger Eyes poll, so there are some people that want that, but I think if we look across the whole universe of Punisher fans, I just think at a like $60 or $70 price point in a compendium, I think you have a lot more people that are going to pick it up, and it just seems a lot more realistic to get through this material in compendium than in 10 omnibuses. It just seems impossible that we could ever make it through all of those omnibuses. This would be my only Marvel blind buy, and there's nothing for this era outside of the main title. Yeah, they've occasionally collected the beginning of Warzone and War Journal in trade paperback, but not comprehensively. Phantom Maximus saying, all of my money. Saz Mirth saying, Punisher Compendium makes sense if it includes War Journal and Warzone, which I feel that it should. Just make this accessible, says Planet. Yes. Okay. Plus, I haven't been really on the Marvel side hitting the affordable, desirable, improved, because I've kind of been talking about it, but like, obviously we hit affordability, but desirability, Punisher's a big star right now. This is the highest profile he has ever had. He was just in a movie. He was in the trailer, so I feel like I can say that, and it's not a spoiler. So, like, now is the time. And, of course, as always, Marvel is behind, and they're only putting Punisher stuff out for next year. Well, they haven't locked all of their 2027 slate yet. There is still time to get the first book of this out in the end of next year. Would that piss off Epic fans? Because they're like, what do you mean you're not going to reprint the Epics? Yeah, but this would be so much better that I think that it would forgive itself for existing. Okay. Include the Shadow Masters mini, and I'm sold, and it absolutely should include that mini. Number 10. Again, I tried to pick some things that are fundamentally unepicable and maybe even non-omnibusable. This is Scarlet Witch, The Fall and Rise of Wanda Maximoff. This one is, I got intense, and I told you exactly what I would put into it. I would put Avengers Disassembled. I would put House of M. I would put that one issue of New Avengers where she comes back. I would put all of Children's Crusade. I would put the beginning of Avengers versus X-Men, just where she has her conversation with Hope. I would put in the Uncanny Avengers annual. I would maybe consider putting in a whole arc of Uncanny Avengers, but it feels like it takes us pretty far off to the side. Maybe where she has her fight with Rogue, but that's a lot of side material. Then I'd put in the whole James Robinson series, and then I would put in her appearances in Jason Aaron's Doctor Strange. This would be such a satisfying hunk of Wanda. And if you look at that, look at all the different books, think about how big she is in the MCU, how many fans she has, how explosive the online fandom is for Scarlet Witch, and then run through this and think in your mind how many different Epic collections or omnibuses we're asking people to buy. So Avengers, that's either going to be an New Avengers omnibus or an Epic collection. House of M did not get integrated with Avengers in Epic, so now you're asking to get a House of M trade or omnibus. More New Avengers, but that's deeper into the run. I think that might even be in the second omnibus. Children's Crusade is its own Epic collection in the Young Avengers line or in the Young Avengers omnibus. Avengers versus X-Men is a whole separate omnibus. An Uncanny Avengers annual that hasn't even been printed in omnibus because it wasn't by Rick Remender. The Scarlet Witch James Robinson series, which I think got a single trade but never got a hardcover release. And then some stuff from Doctor Strange by Aaron. We're talking about sending somebody who's a big Wanda fan out to get 8 books to get her complete story over the course of 15 years. That's insane. This is, I know people are like, well, she's not the biggest one. How could you have put it above cap? Because the market appetite for this is so big, and you can't really make this work in Epic Collection because it collects so many things that are kind of double dipped from elsewhere. It would be a very weird omnibus for that same reason, but if you put it out as a $60 to $75 book and called it Scarlet Witch, The Fall and Rise of Wanda Maximoff, that just explains exactly what it is, and it makes it satisfying to get they're huge blockbuster stories, and the whole thing that we've seen from DC in the compendiums is like, there's nothing wrong with putting a bunch of blockbusters in compendium. You've already sold them in the premium formats already. I think that's going to be one of the biggest things things for Marvel, like, get over the hump on, honestly, like, intellectually, is like, it's fine to put this stuff out for affordable amounts of money. Fingler says, just like magic, people love Wanda, and this would be printing money. Dr. Zero said, I would add Burns Avengers West Coast. You know, I am not against, as I was putting the slide together, I was like, should it actually start with like Vision and the Scarlet Witch and Avengers West Coast? What I decided was I wanted all modern comic books because I really wanted stuff that would super feel like easy to pick up and read. And sometimes like mixing 80s stuff and 2000 stuff can be a strange experience, but I'm not against that. And I didn't do a page count thing. This is not a mapping show, but yeah, I think having that darker than Scarlet stuff in a compendium as well would be super, super cool. I mean, yeah, you could put Trial of Magneto in here. I mean, this could extend in either direction. I completely agree. I just think that this core story of her like falling and rising again, this is what you need in this book. And then like a nice thick James Robinson run. I think you would do an Orlando compendium after this. I don't know that the Orlando stuff would ever move as an omnibus, but it would sure as hell move as a compendium. Yeah, to pay homage to the current Steve Orlando series, they should split this up into at least 5 different compendiums. Super job. You keep those intrusive thoughts to yourself. Okay. Is the after show on the Patreon website. So here's the thing. I don't like updating the Patreon website. I already have a website that I update. It's called crushingcrisis.com. So when the links to the after show go up as an archive, they go up as posts on crushingcrisis.com. And if you're at the appropriate Patreon level, you unlock them. That's always been the case. There's nothing special about Patreon. Maybe that will change in the future, but the thing that you are pledging for on Patreon is a Crushing Crisis login. So all of the material and everything is on Crushing Crisis itself. On my actual website, crushingcrisis.com. Okay. Yeah, and Vision and Wanda, that's the other thing. When I was looking at the earlier Wanda and like, oh, would I include Vision and Scarlet Witch and stuff like that? I was like, actually, that all feels like it could be like a Vision and Wanda classic compendium. And then this would be like because there's really not a lot of Vision in all this. And it would be weird to just like shove in Tom King's Vision into the end of this. So it really feels like this is the Wanda focused years. Okay. Wow. Well, one of our biggest font of knowledges is heading out for the night. Thank you so much for all the amazing contributions, Louise, that you've made to the show so far. And I hope you catch the rest of the Marvel stuff on replay. Number 9, Fantastic Four by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. The complete Silver Age of Fantastic Four has perfect epic mapping. Maybe we could squeeze in a guest appearance here and there, but it's perfect in epics. But here's the thing. In epics, it's 7 epics. Now, whether that's Kirby leaving at 103 or Stan Lee leaving at 125, 7 epics. Or 4 omnibuses. So you're asking people to track down all those books, which Marvel has proven themselves to be constitutionally incapable of keeping in print all at the same time, when we could easily have it all in print as 3 compendiums, maybe even 2 compendiums, depending on how big they would get. That is a path of lesser resistance. I'm not saying never reprint the omnibuses ever again. I'm saying if you pay attention to conversations around Marvel, you know what a really common one is? I want to start Marvel from the beginning. Where should I start? Fantastic Four is the beginning of the Silver Age. I want to read the early Doctor Doom. Where do I start? Well, there is that Doctor Doom omnibus, but I'm saying having this in compendium answers all those questions, and it's easy thing to pick up, cheaper than an omnibus, easier to keep in print. It's more affordable than the 4 omnibuses it would take to cover this. Even if it took 4 compendiums, it would still be more affordable. It's desirable because Fantastic Four is one of the most requested omnibuses and the most reprinted omnibuses. And in terms of improvements, not a ton, but there are a couple of significant Fantastic Four side appearances that you could include, like in Amazing Spider-Man #1. And if you really wanted to go crazy, you could, as a backup, include the Human Torch and Thing stories from Strange Tales. If you wanted to integrate them, you could also have the Doctor Doom stories that is in the... Where's my Marvel Rarities? That's in my Marvel Rarities. So there are ways that you could improve in the Silver Age on how to collect Fantastic Four, but I think the Silver Age foundations of Marvel are always going to be important. There's always going to be people interested in them. And I just don't think $100 omnibuses are the best way to keep that in print. Sam Fisher saying I have 4 of the 7 epics and the other 3 are impossible to find. Edwin Billiot saying Classic Fantastic Four. Yes. Anarchy in the US Com saying Classic FF should always be in print. I'd buy this FF compendium instantly, says Jean Remy. And the Fingler saying historical stuff like Classic FF and X-Men should always be in print. Number 8. This is me and my bullshit because I refused to not be heard. I'm going to get this in some format eventually. This is what I call the Astonishing X-Men saga. Here's the thing. Astonishing X-Men, every time it gets printed, it sells out. The epics printed, sold out. Omnibus reprinted, sold out. Complete collections printed, sold out. Say what you will about Joss Whedon. I've even gotten soft on the quality of the interior arcs of this run over time. It just doesn't matter. This has achieved greatest of all time status. It will always be that way. No matter how many critical reevaluations we do, it's always going to be there. But the thing is, that's just 25 issues. And could we just put out a compendium of those 25 issues? Yes, we could. And it could be by Joss Whedon. Do they want to do that? And also, does that really offer improvement of all these other things? Because here's the thing. I do think this will always get reprinted in Omnibus. I don't think there's any reason to think it wouldn't always get reprinted in Omnibus. So I looked at, well, what could we offer in a compendium that makes it maybe more interesting than Omnibus? As you've heard me say on many prior occasions, there's another Omnibus worth of material that they've always skipped over that fits in. And you could have that all as one reading experience in a compendium. You could have House of M in there. House of M explicitly happens in the middle of this run, and it has the whole astonishing team. It's really important for them. But it's a story that like stars Cyclops, stars Emma, has Kitty Pryde doing stuff. It could absolutely be in here. We could have Kitty Pryde Shadow and Flame in here, a terrific series that shows what she does on vacation from the school in between semesters. Greg Pak's Phoenix Endsong and Warsong that were just in the Phoenix Omnibus, and Joss Whedon wrote some other stories starring this cast that were in Giant Size X-Men, and there's a story in Free Comic Book Day 2006 that has this whole cast interacting with Molly Hayes. Those main 25 issues of Astonishing X-Men, they've always cost a minimum cover price of $60. Recently, that was $80 in 2 Epic collections. So even if you make this an $80 compendium and it just has those 25 issues, at least it's not 2 different books you have to keep in print. And at least it's not an omnibus that you have to keep in print. But again, there's the possibility to just put in some extra stuff in here to make it different or more interesting. And again, looking at what DC has done with the books that they've done it in, like even Planetary as a compendium, it's not different than recent releases of Planetary, but it's different than the way Planetary used to be collected. And again, I will always come back to the Teen Titans, the JSA, the Jeff Johns era of Green Lantern. Making the books more all-inclusive makes sense. You wouldn't want to try to collect this alongside all of the X-Men in this period. It just wouldn't read correctly because the X-Men line is doing so many different things at this point that to like collect this alongside 4 years worth of Peter Milligan X-Men would be strange. But there's definitely a way to expand this material and make it a really interesting compendium. And yet I didn't put it on the Uncanny tier. That's right, William, and I don't apologize. No, I didn't put Whedon on the Uncanny tier. I think I put this Omnibus on the Uncanny tier. Late to the stream, but classic Spidey should always be in print, saying my friend Johnny from the Biff Bam Pal pod. One Wheelchair X saying, it does surprise me that Endsong and Warsong don't get collected more since I think it's an important part of the build-up to AVX. Well, that's why it's in the Phoenix Omnibus. Okay, let's continue to number 7, Spider-Man Blue and Red. I debated this so much because I think this should be an omnibus in the same way that Blue and Gold is an omnibus. But looking at where Marvel is in the world of Spider-Man omnibuses right now, it just feels much more possible that we could get a compendium. So what do I mean, Spider-Man Blue and Red? It is my tongue-in-cheek way of saying X-Men Blue and Gold. It is the Spider-Man book that is all Spider-Man stuff in reading order. They have the reading order. They printed a Marvel official index that puts all those issues in order. They know what the reading order is. It is a known solved problem. At Marvel, you don't have to do any additional research. It's always been there. The Epic line has always just been Amazing Spider-Man. Fine. There's only like one more gap to fill and then they're into Clone Saga, so this will not compete with that. And people will be so rapturously excited about getting all of Spider-Man in reading order that they won't even care that this is double dipping old Spider-Man. And the great thing is, you could start this at 100 different places. You could start this in 1972 at the beginning of Marvel Team Up. You could start in 76 at the beginning of Spectacular. You could start it in 85 when Team Up ends and we get the launch of Web of Spider-Man. You could start this start it with the Alien Costume Saga stuff that's in the Alien Costume Omnibus, or start with the material that directly follows that. You could start it with Todd McFarlane and David Michelinie jumping onto the title of 296. There's so many different options. And the great thing about this is, since the audience has already been trained by the Epic collections to not necessarily expect things in order, and the DC Finest do that same thing, and the Blue and Gold omnibuses do that, you don't have to keep releasing it sequentially in order if you don't want to. You could pick big periods, put a compendium to anchor that period, maybe two in a row, and then move on. There's so many possibilities. This, I do think, in terms of sales potential, this would be my number one. I think this is the big secret weapon nuclear bomb that Marvel has in its arsenal right now that it could do anything with, whether it's paperbacks, omnibuses, no matter how they do it, this would be a seller. And I just think it's time. We've waited for so long. There remains so much of Spectacular and Web not to collect. And here's the thing, doing it in Compendium is like secretly a really good idea because it doesn't compete with omnibuses. If you do it in omnibus, you get that whole Krakoa phenomena of people being like, well, I don't know, should I buy the creator omnibuses or the anthology omnibuses? I don't know if I want both. But if you put it in Compendium, it's like, okay, if you want it in perfect reading order and massive chunks, buy the Compendiums. If you want the deluxe version, buy it in omnibus. Maybe one day we'll make the Compendiums in omnibus, ooh, but we don't have to worry about that right now. So is it affordable? Hell yes, because not only would it be in a more affordable format, but it would be a lower price point and it would have more like Spider-Man material per book, but it wouldn't move as quickly through Amazing, which means Marvel could milk it much longer. Is it desirable? In a world, see, I put it right on the slide, so I would actually say it. That's how important this is to me. In a world where blue and gold omnibuses, triangle omnibuses, post-crisis Batman DCFs all exist, this is what the market wants. I go all the way back to my first slide. The market wants today easily read books in easily read reading order. They do not want to flip back and forth multiple omnibuses to get things right. And does it offer an improvement? Yes, the improvement is right there in the format. This needs to happen. Marvel, come on, you don't even need me. There's no math to do. It's already something that could be existing. So Brady Purier saying, wouldn't it be nice, but I don't think they would make it a cheaper option of content than an Omni that would always sell out. I mean, I don't know. I would love to see it as an Omni. I have no dispute about it being an Omni. I think the thing is, Marvel is realizing there is a ceiling of how many omnibuses they can sell per character, per line, per all of Marvel every year. And they can't even keep all the amazing, like they can't even keep the Bagley omnibuses in print. They can't even keep the JMS omnibuses in print. So I just think if they're going to try to evergreen a specific period of Spider-Man in a way that always makes it accessible. And like, I just think what we're learning from this current compendium mania, this compendium surge across the comic book industry is that it's just easier to keep a smaller number of cheaper, bigger books in print than it is to keep a greater number of books in print or more expensive books in print. So going back to print on compendiums is a way easier choice than going back to print on omnibus. I mean, they weigh less than omnibus. There's a lot of kind of just printing and publishing reasons that it's easier. So do I think Marvel likes omnibus money? Yeah, but you know what? They could still put them out on omnibus. There's no difference. Like, I think it's kind of an equal exchange in both directions, right? And Blue and Red not only is a great name, but it's like a wink, wink, wink to like the way that they titled X-Men. I just think that it's, I don't know. I think it's a slam dunk. They ever do this for Spider-Man, it's 100% the way I would collect. I would buy this no matter what format. As long as they weren't dripping it out. As soon as I see Marvel start to put something out in the tiny miniature pieces, as soon as there's miniature pieces, I'm like, this is going to fail. And I said that, to be fair, on the day that they announced the first Amazing Spider-Man epic, I was like, this is not going to work. And am I saying that I was right necessarily 16 years later as we still have volume 16 to do? I'm saying that it was obvious they were never going to be able to do all of Spider-Man and Epic. It's just too big. Even with DC Finest, which are like 100 or 200 pages bigger than an Epic, it's crazy to think they're going to do all of Batman ever, but DC's not pretending they're going to do all of Batman ever. They're going to do whole periods of Batman. And that's why I think that Compendium would be the right thing to do here, because it allows them to run the play that DC has been running on post-crisis Batman. Spider-Man, Blue, Red, and Web. Yeah, anything that gets colors in the title, I think kind of like says what it is. Would I include Untold Tales? I choose not to decide where retcon stuff would go. I think the only way to do it without shooting yourself in the foot is to put retcon stuff in publishing order instead of continuity order, because as soon as you start inserting old stuff, then as soon as somebody writes a new retcon story that's really important, you've got to go and insert it again. I think if you want to do retcon stuff like integrated with modern stuff the way that the classic X-Men omnibus does, you make that like a special release. But I even though I love reading order and I care about reading order, I've come to accept that in terms of the moving target of a printed work, you probably want to do publishing order. Okay, we're very excited about that. There's 6 more books to get excited. I went hard, y'all. I've been working on this for a while. I have strong opinions, and I think these are all killer books. Number 6, Spider-Verse Miles Morales. This one is a little more obvious, but here, this is more about the sellability of it. Y'all, Spider-Verse movies are a thing. And it's wonderful that we have Miles Morales covered in omnibus as much as we do. Then Marvel does compacts for him. That is great too. But if you want to talk about a character who they could just sell out of the shelf every time they put out compendiums, it's Miles. And you only need, I think, two compendiums to mirror the first two omnibuses, one for when he's in the Ultimate Universe, one for when he comes to the main universe. And wow, you could call it Spider-Verse Miles Morales Compendium, and you could even name them like two different things, like Miles Morales in the Ultimate Universe, Marvel's Morales in the Marvel Universe. I don't like really play with that Spider-Verse idea. So this is not a revolutionary mapping. It already exists, and it's not revolutionary to ask Marvel to print it. Much like Captain America and Daredevil, Miles is a character that Marvel will always break ground in a new format in, but with Miles, they like breaking ground in the cheaper formats with him because he has younger fans. But I just think in a world where we have another Spider-Verse movie coming out, like if you want to have something like these young fans, they are going to go to the bookstore, go to the library, not just young fans. When I say young fans, I don't always mean like 10-year-olds. I mean new to the universe fans. There are people every day coming in on all these comics forums, Discords, Reddits, who are like, hi, I'm in my 40s and I decided to finally read a comic book. Where do I buy the comic book? There was literally one I saw this morning as I was getting ready for the show that the person was like, I'm ready to read comic books now. What comic book do I buy? Like as if there would just be like one, which I'm not making fun of at all. I'm saying like this is an obscure hobby. We're very privileged to enjoy it as much as we do and to have the information that we have to enjoy it. I think for a character as huge as Miles that is in not only the Spider-Verse movie, but let's not lose sight that he's also in like Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends or whatever it's called, the series with the Patrick Stump music, which I love on Disney Plus. Like everybody knows who he is now. And we have Tom Holland in interviews being like, I can't wait to help Marvel introduce Miles eventually. Like, get this boy into Compendiums. Okay? Okay. This has been a great stream as my first one. Bravo. Thank you so much, Fangler. Wow. I'm usually so good at clocking when somebody's here for the first time, but you've just been weaving in and out of the conversation so much that I didn't even realize it was your first time. Batman the comic saying Untold Tales feels like it would fit perfectly in with the 60s issues. Well, and it was written to be fit perfectly in with the 60s issues, but I don't think I'd make them together. MJ knows Peter as Spidey in Untold Tales and didn't know until Black Costumes. Batmantha, if we ever do an all Spider-Man stream about something on this channel, Batmantha will be here. Dana Andrews saying Spider-Man Complete Black Costume Saga would be a greatest compendium. It's almost like that could be the first blue and red compendium. Why did DC only get 10 picks? Because DC already has a robust compendium line and they don't need my help. I mean, a lot of the things I would pick for DC are things that they like are doing in Compendium already. So I kind of was just like DC, and you saw I had to dig as deep as Bombshells. DC is killing it. Plus DC has the Finest as an active line right now. So it's kind of, and they're not double dipping Finest with Compendium. So it's kind of like that. A lot of the stuff, like I really wanted to say Wonder Woman Perez, but like it kind of feels like they're probably going to do a Wonder Woman Perez Finest. Like why would they Compendium it? Like, it, you know, it just was easy to just do 10. Whereas Marvel, it's a whole gulf of needing some help, baby. Brian didn't even start reading comics until he was 31. That's when I got my driver's license. Okay, number 5. Now we're into stuff that I have strong feelings and possibly maps of. Avengers, the complete new Avengers era. This is another one of those books that every time there's a new format, we get some version of it. But in the epics, I do love them, and they do collect it better than anything else have in the past, but it failed because it did not do two things. One, collect the events. Even though Bendis didn't write Civil War was very much an Avengers event, and he writes all the other events. So why aren't they in the epic collections? Because that's not what epics is, and that ship has long since sailed. But also, then there's Mighty Avengers. Then there is Avengers the Initiative. Then there's Dark Avengers. Bendis was in control of this whole line. Even when he wasn't the one writing things like the Initiative, it all was in a perfect reading order with his stuff. There's a Bendis reading order on Crushing Crisis that explains it issue by issue. If there's anything that would be satisfying compendium, I mean, think about these books that are like think about people who love Berserk, which is like one of the highest selling comic books in the world. And it's a manga, and it has like 17 volumes now, and they are thick. And every time one comes out, people go insane, and people have a whole shelf of 17. Now, am I saying all of New Avengers is as good as Berserk? No, do not mishear my words. But I'm saying if you could put together a shelf of Avengers compendiums this long, everybody's like, what, where's the good Avengers run? I'm not saying this is the best Avengers run, but I'm saying that like this is a chance to get 8 years of compendiums all together that tells one big Avengers story that has a very clear beginning, middle, and end. That is so attractive. That's what compendiums should exist to do. This is Marvel's version of the Green Lantern compendium. Like the thing that DC is doing with the Green Lantern compendium, that's what a new Avengers compendium should do. I'm not 100% firm that it should have Initiative and Academy in it. Maybe they become like a separate kind of like Young Avengers compendium that could also have Young Avengers in it, right? Like but the main adult teams, which Bendis had a hand in writing all of, even though he eventually steps off of Mighty Avengers, I do think they should go all in one book. Exposing Comics saying Bendis run needs the events and all the titles. Trace Williams says, yes, I feel like a complete Bendis era is a guarantee if Marvel starts Compendiums. It's ridiculous that the epics omit the minis. So much to include with New Avengers. This was my era. This would be very satisfying. This is my bullshit. So many people think, and Trace Williams thinks Young Avengers should be mapped in with this. Yeah, I'm just saying that I don't, putting on my marketer hat, I do, and seeing where the MCU is going, I think there could be some utility in selling all of the kid stuff, Young Avengers Initiative sort of, and Academy as one line that they could market that way and send it selling like the grown-ups in the other book. I feel like there could be more money to be made that way than putting them all in one. Personally, I would want them all in one. Okay. Yeah, huge. I mean, so affordable, yes. The New Avengers alone, just to get through the main run before the 2010 relaunch, required 7 epics, which now are starting to be unavailable again. Desirability, yes. Bendis Avengers is always leading the way in new print formats, so it's an obvious choice, and improved, I think I made the case for why it would be improved. Okay. Let's continue to my top 4. Number 4, this is one you've heard me stump for before. And look, all 4 of these we're at the money printing press. We are printing out George Washington's and Ben Franklin's and everything in between here. Secret Wars, the complete saga. You know, Marvel might be releasing a movie next year called Secret Wars. They might be setting 2 movies in a row on Battleworld. They might be having Doctor Doom be the featured hero there. And the idea of Doctor Doom kind of thieving powers from other people like Galactus, gee, it's almost as if the trailer almost hinted at that both visually and in the narrative. It's almost as if this is the most important thing for Marvel to have in print right now, and it's not in print right now. Why would you not have it in print right now, Marvel? Now, to be fair, I promised you there would have some things on this list that is fundamentally unepicable. I guess you could epic the Secret Wars saga, but you would just wind up putting each of the Secret Wars in one epic collection, which means the same problem we always have, which is a bunch of things out of print. Same thing of trying to get this all in omnibus. I think you do this all in one. You do Marvel's Superhero Secret Wars 1 through 12 from the 80s, and then you put the modern Battleworld miniseries in it right after that. So to the point we were just making about, like, do you sometimes put retcon material in reading order? Here I think you do, because it just gives you something modern and playful so that people don't think that this is a slog, right? Then you do Secret Wars 2, which is a slog, but it's the Beyonder, and you could actually leave that out because it's not about Battleworld, but I think you just put it in to make this the complete saga, right? Then you do the Secret Wars 3 story from Fantastic Four. Then you do Beyond, because Beyond is a Battleworld book, and that's important to the continuity of the movie. Then you do the Hickman Secret Wars. And then if you want to, you could do All Out Avengers and Avengers Beyond, which also play with this concept. If Marvel does not put this out next year, they are insane. This book needs to drop next September. I don't care what format it is. You could do an omnibus, but like, flames on the side of my face, heaving breaths. I just, and there's so many other things, right? Trace Williams, great point. Like, this is me, when I put these maps on here, these are not meant to be like definitive perfect maps. This is like, you minimum need to do this. Maybe do some Illuminati stuff that has the Beyonder in it, right? Like, it depends on if they think the Beyonder is the point or Doctor Doom is the point. If Doctor Doom is more the point that they want to make, you put more Doctor Doom stuff. Like, there's other ways to take this, but like, this is an obvious compendium. And again, Marvel, this idea that it's always got to be an omnibus, well, we could do that in omnibus. We've sold this in omnibus already, and it's always sellable in omnibus. If you print the Secret Wars omnibus again, it'll sell. If you print the Hickman Secret Wars omnibus again, it'll sell every time you print it. This is a chance to get the people coming in off the movie. When a movie makes $1 billion, and every movie ticket is $10, which I know that that's not the case anymore. Movie tickets are closer to $20, but just stick with me for the easy math there. That means that movie sold 100 million tickets, or even let's say the ticket was $20. That means the movie sold 50 million tickets. Let's say everybody went twice. So the movie got seen by 25 million people. If the movie got seen by 25 million people, I'm sure you could sell more than 100 of this book, Marvel. Like, literally, the whole reason Crushing Crisis exists is because I used to sit in fan spaces when I first got into this, and I was the one asking these questions. How do I buy this? Where do I buy this? I was looking at the discussions. I mean, comic book CBDB had a discussion board. I was on the CBR discussion board. I was on the Marvel Masterworks fan site. These are the questions people ask. They see a movie, they come on the internet, and they say, tell me where to read this complete story. And in many cases in Marvel movies, there's no way. Like the Spider-Man movie, which I did wind up seeing. Is there any one place to read that story? No, it's not any one story. It's not even any 10 stories. In this case, we have the story of 2 whole Marvel movies, and you could do it in one compendium. Okay, I'm done. I think you've heard my point. I think you're either on board or you're not. Okay. Okay. In a world where One Piece has over 100 volumes and is the best-selling manga, I feel like Avengers line would do well. Oh, we're still back there in Avengers. Grace and Flow's instant buy. Secret Wars 2 and 3 is diabolical. Well, like I said, John, if they decide that this is not... if they decide they'd rather keep the focus on Battle World, maybe you don't focus on the Beyonder as much, and I'm fine with that. Cruel Angel would pick this up just to get Secret Wars 2 in case they never reprint it again. Trace Williams saying this is a cool one. By the way, if you see me playing with things on my desk, I have all the leftovers from my Rogue cosplay. If you did not see me on Near Mint Condition last week on the X-Men 97 review, which is actually the least viewed video that I was on in the last week, I did full Rogue cosplay, including Rogue hair and a Rogue outfit, and I just happened to have this and some other elements on my desk, so I'm like fussing with them in front of me. But yeah, you can go and watch that on Your Mint Condition. Okay. Top 3. If I just did number 5 and number 4 and they were this big, what's in my top 3? Think about that. Alex saying, is the war that much of a secret anymore? Okay, here we go. Number 3. Amazing Spider-Man by Stan Lee. I mean, come on. If, again, I look at all these spaces, it's my Spider-Man guide, the amount of traffic the guide gets is insane. It never stops. It's gotten that much traffic month after month since 2013. When the movie comes out, it spikes, but it never goes down. And I know there's other Spider-Man stuff on the internet now, other Spider-Man guides. There's so many more reading guide sites than there used to be. People are making apps now. I'm just like this weird old person going, look at my words. But those words, people are still looking them all the time. And people all the time, commonly are popping online and saying, I want to read Spider-Man from the beginning. And here's the thing. All of Stan Lee pretty much is a perfect map of up to where that blue and red would start, because there's no real other Spider-Man at this point. You could pull in a couple of guest appearances, you could pull in Spectacular Spider-Man magazine, but Stan Lee leaves the title just as literally the first issue of Marvel Team Up you would read before the last issue of Stan Lee, but I mean, it's like one issue that we'd have to shift over in reading order. So this is perfect. And we know exactly where the Stan Lee run begins and ends. We know that we could easily do it in 2 or 3 compendiums. It right now requires 6 epics or 3 omnibuses to collect. None of them are simultaneously in print. None of them have ever been simultaneously in print. If there is one Marvel character that we need to have early stories available because they're readable, because people care about them, because they've been referenced in 100 different media, because they're classics of the medium, it's this. I mean, we've had it in every format. There's no need to be shy. We've had it in digest-sized Mighty Marvel Masterworks. We've had it in giant-sized Taschen editions. This is where the compendium line should be starting. This should never be out of print. Never, 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 never. This should be in print at all times, in stock at all stores, because I promise you, there is never an end to new people discovering Spider-Man. Never. Never an end. It's one of the most requested omnibuses of all time. Every time one of them goes out of print, people ask for it to be in print again. This is a license to print money, but more than that, if Marvel has something that's around all the time, this is what that should be. This is it. Now, can you improve the mapping? Because we haven't really been talking a lot about improvement on every single one of them. I think you can improve it a little bit. The Epic collections are very comprehensive. Spider-Man makes a handful of meaningful guest appearances. Mostly it's like him swinging through a panel of something just so they could say that Spider-Man appeared. But there are a couple of times that he makes a more meaningful guest appearance, such as Fantastic Four number 73. Griffin Rhodes saying this is the first time catching one of my streams live, often watching on replay, and love my work on Near Mint Conditions as well as buy several of these that I've discussed. Thank you so much for stopping by and for watching live and for leaving a comment. We're almost at the end here, so if you want to keep talking to me after, you want to grab the link to the after show now. I'm pretty sure it's in the description. I'm pretty sure I pasted it in. So this would be the time to make sure you have that link, because the second this stream ends, that link goes away. Okay, here we go. I mean, I feel like not everybody, people are not even saying a lot of things here because here's the thing. A lot of us own this. Like I have it right there in Epic Collection. A lot of people have it in Omnibus. So unlike some of these other choices, this is not like a revolutionary, I don't own it. But I think even those of us who own it all know that it should exist for new readers who are coming into the medium. Okay. Grayson saying, baffles me. This is an evergreen. Okay. 2 more left. What would I choose as my top 2? I remember, sometimes I forget, but this time I know. Number 2 is the Infinity Saga by Jim Starlin. This should have already happened. It's crazy to me that it didn't. And the thing is, though, if you're announcing an initial lineup of compendiums and you want to drop the mic hard on the initial announcement to be like, yeah, we did it. Yeah, that thing you've always wanted, it's here. This is what you do. You do all the Starlin Thanos stuff all in one book. You do Thanos Quest, Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity War, Infinity League Crusade. You can even include Infinity Abyss and Thanos. And again, I'm not saying this is an exclusionary list. We could also do classics Thanos material. Like, I'm not trying to have an argument about that. I'm just saying, to me, the core of this book is that stuff. The reason to do it is obvious because it's a huge influence in the Marvel Universe. They've cribbed off of multiple parts of the saga. Also, it's just like, in its way, this is Marvel's Crisis on Infinite Earths. I know a lot of people would say Secret Wars is Marvel's Crisis because it came out at the same time, but Secret Wars was so much more toyetic than Crisis was. This was really Marvel, like, at length, disassembling, reassembling, breaking apart, pitting heroes against each other. Personally, I think this is a little closer to Crisis and also just had a higher pedigree, at least in Infinity Gauntlet. I'm not saying War and Crusade had a higher pedigree. Infinity Gauntlet is certainly as high pedigree and as at times ponderous as Infinite Crisis or Crisis on Infinite Earth. So I just think that everybody knows who Thanos is from the movies. This cover, by the way, goes harder than almost any other cover in comic books history. I love this cover so much. And I think it just sends a signal, if you start with this, that Marvel is serious about doing compendiums that are putting all of the stuff you've always wanted in one place. And James Rhodes, I highlight that in italics right there. Anytime you collect Infinity Crusade, you have to include the issues that it crossed over into with Warlock and the Infinity Watch and Warlock Chronicles. Would this have all of Warlock and the Infinity Watch in between all of these? I personally would say no until maybe Thanos shows up, because I just think a lot of those issues are really marginal. And the thing is, Marvel has the ability to define what they want their compendiums to be. At DC, we've seen this idea that the compendiums are the all in, everything, nothing skipped. Marvel could decide to do that, or they could kind of go their own way. They could go their own way. And in going their own way, they could be like, these are not going to be totally complete. This is the Thanos stuff you've always wanted. I don't really have an opinion in either direction. I just know that this should exist. Putting it perfectly, this would catfish a lot of newbies. Jeremiah saying, best cover of all time, no debate, don't at me. This is another Omni I'm waiting for. Yeah, I would love this in Omnibus. I think it's so weird that they put together Infinity Gauntlet with Hickman's Infinity in an Omnibus, but they never put all the Starlin stuff together in an Omnibus. So there's a lot of ways you could go with this. Who knows? Maybe Thanos is going to come back as a part of whatever happens after Secret Wars. Like, who knows? But I just think that this is a thing that sells to existing comic book fans. Again, we're talking about 3 omnibuses. They go out of print constantly. I think 2 of them have never been reprinted. So, like, even the tried and true Wednesday Warriors have a reason to want this. And then the new fans do too. So this is not all about like, get the newbies. This is about us. This is about the faithful too. And I think a lot of people would be very happy to pick this up for $60 to $75. I did think about, should it have like because Thanos had like a Thanos classic omnibus that was pretty big. I think it was like 1,000 pages or something like that. So part of me is like, oh, should we start there? And it's like, no, this is the big bomb blast hit. Put this out first. And if this sells crazy numbers, then you put out that. That's what I think. Okay. What would be the number 1? I will tell you. Don't clip this, James. This is me admitting I was wrong and Omar was right. The number 1 book that Marvel should do in Compendium is X-Men, the Claremont era. It should start with Giant Size X-Men, which I know Chris Claremont didn't write. It should have all of the classic X-Men backups collected where they fit into continuity. If they happen in continuity before this, they should be in a Silver Age collection. And once we get through the first 3 books of this and we get to Uncanny X-Men 167, then it starts to include New Mutants. And then when we get to Uncanny X-Men 201 and Scott leaves, then it has X-Factor. I don't know that it would need to have Wolverine, because Wolverine is so far off to the side. I don't think it would have Excalibur. I think what we're looking at here is a complete collection of everything X-Men in perfect reading order from 1975 to 1981. I think now's the time. I think Marvel's seeing from the Blue and Gold books that it is possible and that people want it. I think Marvel is seeing from the Krakoa anthologies that it's possible and people want it. I think they're seeing that in the DC Finest. I think they're seeing that in the Triangle books. The audience today, I'm not just talking about young people, I'm just talking about everybody. They are tired of switching books back and forth. And honestly, people are switching back from wanting digital to being like, I want a physical artifact. And so they're saying like, give me a physical artifact of all X-Men in order. And the great thing about this is it's kind of like a backdoor pilot for itself, because you don't have to start with it all being integrated with New Mutants and everything. You say that that will be the case in the marketing copy, but the first couple of volumes are kind of just Claremont with some classic X-Men stuff worked in. Then when we get to 167, everything explodes. And this would even offer an improvement over the event line of X-Men books, because the event line didn't always put all the issues necessarily in reading order. Like Fall of the Mutants, I think if memory serves, just has them in 3 big chunks. This would be an explicit reading order, which would be challenging because sometimes there is no explicit reading order when it comes to X-Men. So like there would have to be some editorial decisions made, and you might want to invite somebody who has really good knowledge and opinions about these things, come on, Vogue, to help you with these. But this is not self-serving. I already have a reading guide that does this. I already have all of these in at least 3 different formats. But I'm saying if you're looking at the book that would sell the most, the Holy Grail, especially with an X-Men movie that just got announced, it's going to be coming out May 5th, 2028. Guess what, Marvel? The clock be ticking. You have about a year and a half to get 2 of the books from this line out. DC just managed it with Lanterns. They have 2 Lantern books out when the Lanterns TV show hit. With Superman, they had a Triangle Omnibus out when the Superman movie hit. The clock is ticking, Marvel. And let's talk about this. I don't think this is right for Omnibus. We saw how long it took to get all of those omnibuses out. Marvel just staggered across the finish line with New Mutants and X Factor, and we still have more Claremont omnibuses. I mean, we kind of have it, but it's in like 3 different omnibus formats. It is crazy talk to think that this should start as an omnibus line. Maybe if it's the biggest selling compendium of all time, later they upgrade it to omnibus and everybody's happy. But the way to do this, because of the price factor, because of how big they're going to need to be, because of the uniqueness of it, because you want to sell it down market to people who just saw the X-Men cast announcement this weekend at D23, you do it in compendium. There is no bigger slam dunk compendium available to any publisher that we have talked about today other than this one. This is the one. This is where the money is. This is what the people want. There are dozens of posts every week across the internet of people who just want this. And it's finally one book that Marvel could keep in print as an evergreen, because you know the first one could get farther than the Dark Phoenix saga. It could finally fix the problem with the how far the mapping extended on the first Uncanny X-Men omnibus. You do the first compendium of this and you take it all the way through John Byrne leaving. And then the second compendium of this gets all the way to New Mutants. Like if you plan it right, you can evergreen it, keep it constantly in print, and you can have a constant stream of X-Men fans. And in the back of this book, you put the advertisements to the Adamantium edition or the omnibus or Taschen or whatever else nonsense you're selling. And you know what? If this does really well, then you do one for the Silver Age too. And maybe if you don't want to, like, you know, take all those extra classic X-Men issues and you put them in the Silver Age, just run the ones that would happen before Giant Size X-Men as back matter in the first book, right? I'm not saying I have a definitive mapping idea about this yet. Marvel, if you want that milkshake, you got to come to my yard with a check, okay? So I'm not doing all the work for you here on the stream, but I don't know if they need to come to my yard, because I think they have a milkshake machine at Marvel. It's not as good as my milkshake machine. It's like as good as like a McDonald's milkshake machine. My milkshakes are like a Dairy Queen milkshake that you could like turn over and it's not going to fall out of the cup. But Marvel's milkshakes, they're fine. Okay, so this is, I think, the number one. I'm sure so many people are commenting. Let me scroll up. Omar must never know about this. Before they do this, they have to print the Omnia Volume 4. I don't think they do. I think they'd say, we'll reprint them when we reprint them. Maybe we reprint one omnibus a year. Maybe we won't. Here's the thing. I'm part of this list takes into account, I'm willing to say Marvel is a failed state of omnibus reprints. They're never going to be good at it. It's never going to happen for us. They're never going to keep them in print. I think I'm like, let's move into the future and let the future be compendiums. Yep, this will sell better than Spidey in my opinion. Yes, yes, yes. I was so sad everyone was bullying Omar for including classic X-Men. You know what changed for me, Chapman FGC, over the months since that stream? I've just seen the conversations. I've seen people to be be like, I don't want to buy 2 books. I don't want to look at your reading order. Like, thank you for making the reading order, but it just needs to happen yesterday, in the words of Satyr and Sage. This would get me to swap from my epics if it's mapped well. I don't think I would put in Excalibur. I think that's, you gotta remember that the casual people that are buying this don't want to necessarily read Goofy McGooferstein's Excalibur. They want to read the main thread of X-Men. You could always do Excalibur as its own compendium. You could always do Wolverine as its own compendium. I think it's about the 3 core titles that is the story of the mutants. I was extremely wrong on this, classic X-Men included. Well, you know, I do make mistakes. I win, no brainer. It needs to include Claremont written Excalibur. Well, apparently the Excalibur opinion will be the thing we start fighting about from here forward. I'd include Excalibur. Well, people feel strongly about Excalibur. Oh my gosh, people were triggered. I would do it like a complete reading order. I'm so done with one Omni having Mephisto versus the alternate Omni not having it. Just get it all done in one. I mean, you have so many thoughts. But wait, we're not quite done here. Because 40 is such a boring number. If instead you could have 42. So I have 2 more books that I think Marvel could do in Compendium. They're not like higher than this one. They're just 2 that like didn't really fit into my top 15, but I just wanted to talk about them. So we have 2 more to talk about, okay? But this is my number 1 choice. But wait, why leave things at 40 books when we could have 42? Can you hear the Clue music from in between? Dun, 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 dun. No, that's the beginning music. Bum, 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 bum. Dun, 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 dun. Anyway, big Clue fan. You can always tell my influences by the way that I put these streams together. Okay. X-Men, Nathaniel Milbury Origins. If you happen to see the video of the D23 presentation this weekend, I will not spoil the who of it if you're not caught up. It only happened a day ago. But the name Nathan Milbury was mentioned. And those of us who are big comic book fans know that that is a name that's used by Mr. Sinister. Now, this is a book that I had on the Tiger Eyes poll. I think there's a way to... Mr. Sinister, if you want to read everything Mr. Sinister, you're talking about buying so many books. You're talking about buying like one of the Road to Onslaughts for Further Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix, and then you're talking about buying an Inferno omnibus, and then you're talking about buying what will eventually become Blue and Gold Volume 2 to get him like kind of, and then also Peter David X Factor. There, you would be buying then a little bit of Weapon X omnibus. Sinister pops up in so many places before he becomes Krakoa Sassy Sinister. So if we're going to see some Sinister in the MCU, and also as a way to teach people who Sinister is on the road to Krakoa, I think that there's a way to do that as a compendium. Now, I know that Marvel has farmed out that Magneto book to Dark Horse, that wretched bastard child of it. It's a not omnibus and you're not my real dad. That I refuse to acknowledge. You can't do Sinister in a book that's about Sinister's biggest fights or like Sinister's biggest cackling issues. You got to go deep into slow, boring Sinister material. It's got to be Sinister as a eugenicist. It's got to be Sinister losing his mind because he lost his child, right? Like you got to. It's not a fun, sexy fight book. It's a slow burn book. And I think the way you could do that is in a compendium. So not in my top 15, probably not in my top 30, but I just think that you could do it. Okay. And the other one is this Akira book. So we've had Akira on the Marvel Omnibus poll for several years now. And I'm not trying to say something out of school. I think Omar has said like he's heard that they tried. And one of the questions is like, do we still have the art? Like, would it have to be reconstructed all over again? But that's always a bigger problem when you're going to an oversized format than when you're going to a standard size format. Because to go to oversized, you're increasing the size and you need increased fidelity. But could we just get Akira in color in the size that it started out? Could we get it in compendiums? Could Jansha allow that to happen? And would it compete that much with their existing hardcovers? I don't know, because I really don't know that much about manga, and I don't know the publishing rights issue and everything here, but we've just demanded it for so long. And in the same way we got the Indiana Jones stuff showing up just this weekend in preview on Your Mint Conditions channel in the Indiana Jones hardcovers, which we wanted it omnibus, but we still got it in standard size. It was in path of lesser resistance to get it in standard size. And we also heard that bookstores would prefer to carry something like that on the mass market in standard size than they would in oversize. Maybe we could get Akira in compendium too. So kind of exists in a weird gray area. Who even knows if it could ever happen? But I'm just saying, if it could happen in a standard size compendium, or even a standard size hardcover, I would much rather have that than wait an eternity for an omnibus that will never arrive. So now you have seen all of my choices. Do you agree? Disagree? Were some of my choices bullshit? Were some of my choices totally wrong? Did I totally somehow miss that there were Adventure Time compendiums? Who knows? Sound off, not in the chat because we're about to wrap up, but in the comments on the video afterwards. Maybe there's more Compendium videos to go. Obviously, I'll continue to do one at least once a year so we can revisit this and look at what was missed or what is deeper on the list if nobody's made anything on my lists. But what kind of videos do you want to see next? Did you like hearing me talk about indie? Did you like hearing me talk about DC? And did you like me talking about what Marvel could be doing better? I'm happy to continue to talk about all of those things. So please leave me comments and let me know what you thought. This has been such a joy. It's been on my mind for so long. This is part of a huge month of videos for me. This is the 26th anniversary of Crushing Crisis all this month. It is the 26th anniversary in 2026 on August 26th. So there's going to be a lot more to come. I was on video 4 times last week, which was a little bit too many for me. So I'm not going to be on that many times this week, but there is more stuff to go. So make sure you have your notifications turned on. If you've never subscribed or hit notifications on this channel before, definitely give this video a thumbs up if you watched it, because oh my gosh, you made it through 2.5 hours. And plus that really helps it be found when you guys go ham on like the liking and especially the commenting too, helps in the algorithm. I've had videos get bigger than any videos that I've had ever before over the course of the last month, and you're the ones doing that, and I so appreciate you doing that. So more videos to come, including some very special stuff that I have planned coming up for the 26th anniversary, some special stuff for patrons as well. But before we do all that, we got to get to an after show. So if you haven't already, and if you're watching this live, grab the link from below and join me in the after show for whatever you want to talk about, because it's our show. But before then, let's just say one thing that I always like to point out, that we live in this world of superheroes, and it's so fun to get exciting about books, to get excited about movies, to get excited about all these things. But like the real world needs heroes too. And sometimes that involves looking around the real world and just asking, what could you be a little bit heroic about? So I have actually a very specific challenge for you this week. So many people around the world right now, in every place, no matter what the society is, no matter how rich or poor that area seems, have food insecurity. Okay. And that includes people that could be your neighbors you truly don't know. I know people who are food insecure right now, and you better believe I tried to do something to help out, because they suddenly both lost their jobs, or they suddenly lost their ability to rent their house. It can happen to anybody. It could happen to you, and some of you it has happened. So I'm just asking you to just get on the Googs or Bing or DuckDuckGo or whatever you use, and just search local food bank, food insecurity donation, anything like that in your area. And just like, maybe like if you're going to pledge to my Patreon, you could wait a month, or if you're going to buy a comic book tomorrow or something, think of how much it would mean to somebody to show up at one of those food banks and find the loaf of bread or the box of pasta or something that's not just carbs, because it's important to get long life milk for those places. It's important to donate olive oil, which is getting kind of expensive to those places, because a lot of those recipes need some kind of fat in order to be made. A lot of the, like, they get all these donations for like boxed mac and cheese, but you need like a fat or a butter to put into boxed mac and cheese, or a milk, and that doesn't get donated. So it's something that's really important to me. I was somebody who was food insecure myself once upon a time as a kid. I definitely remember waiting in line for food from the government, and some of those welfare programs are much more sparse than they used to be. So I know this might come as a surprise after a whole show about superheroes, but I think we can certainly think about other people in the real world and how to be heroes in the real world after seeing a whole show about superheroes and all this delightful media that we consume. So if I'm asking you to do one thing this week, you have a specific mission. I will be asking you, if you come back next week to watch the show, did you use search to find your local food banking option, and did you do something? Did you send them $5? Did you drop off an extra box of something? Did you see where their local pledge drive is? That is your mission. That is your homework. And that is what I will be asking about the next time I see you all. So until I see you all again, don't have a crisis. Unless, of course, it's me. Be well, everybody.